Okay, the Tuesday, October 9th, 2018 meeting of the Evanston Preservation Commission is called to order. We have a quorum. The time is 7:06. The first item under old business is the application for 917 Edgemere Court. And there are a couple of things that I want to mention specific to this one because we have a fairly long agenda tonight. The applicants have been asked to really focus on the changes to their designs since the September 5th meeting. I also want to mention that for those of you in the audience that want to comment on this, we're going to limit comment and time it to 3 minutes so that we can move through the agenda and make sure that the folks that are following 917 have a thorough opportunity to present their cases. So with that, Fred, you want to go ahead and begin and introduce yourself, and I assume you've signed.
Hello, my name is Fred Wilson from Morganti Wilson Architects. Would like to focus primarily on items 1, 2, 4, and 10 of the standards. We're also going to touch on standard 3 a bit as well. We feel we've tried to focus on a lot of the commission comments from the last meeting, and I will point out the differences. This photo we've added. This is the photo from 1997, the aerial. It actually shows the original, or if you will, the home that was demolished, and there was question if it did have a flat roof at that time. So we just wanted to include that in there. I think everybody knows the site. So these are the 3 site photos. Go to the next one, Eliot. This is actually where we're showing the setback lines for the 250 feet, within 250 feet and the entire block. But we also wanted to point out that the line to the north touches the facade of our front entry sequence, where we feel that that is a line of continuum, and then it jogs to the line at the south that then also touches on the facades that are to the buildings to the south of us. Go to the next one. This shows the actual buildable area that, sorry, Eliot, I keep drawing on your head here. That's okay, I got it, Eliot. So that this shows the buildable area that is allowed per zoning. As of right, there were some questions. As of right means that it's just zoning compliant. We are not asking for any variations. And there was some other question about window wells. We do not have any window wells. And the courtyard on the southern side reduces the mass that comes down along the southern expanse. This drawing, what I want to go back to there. This, I want to point out what we have studied significantly: the front facade of the building and the materiality of the building. The original parapet wall that is along here in our very first submission was 33'6", and we listened to the commission and lowered that down to 30'10". The front entry bay, which is right here, that's the line of it, was 32 feet, and we brought that down to 27 feet. I think, Susie, that was one of the comments that you were making. Then the lower level, this is now 2 feet above grade, and it was 5 feet, so we brought the front entry sequence down to 2 feet. The other thing we have done is the windows now have a vertical orientation to the front facade that is in keeping with, obviously, the more vertical orientation of windows that are on the block. The other is over here on the southern edge of ours, where we then have the 1-story garage that we're next to. We have lowered this down to 20 foot. It used to be 20'8", and it's now 19'8". So the entire sort of front facade has been lowered down. The other element is that the glass on that slide that we'll be showing later, the percentage of the glass to the facade was 22%, and we've reduced the glass to 15%. on the front facade. The other is that the materiality, this is actually stucco entirely now. This is now stucco here, and then this is all stucco. We had a wood and stucco combination. The other thing we've done is the front spine, if this is where that is now mechanical exhaust, and then that spine runs through the building, becomes chimney flues in the back, and we've run that as an architectural element that unifies the front to the back, and you see it exposed on the side inside the courtyard, and these are punched openings that are inside that you'll see on the plan run through. The other is the front C shape, as Eliot referred to, that we had on the front. We have removed to calm down the front facade, and we now have a thin brise-soleil that is here along the front. It's about 8-inch thick brise-soleil, and then we also have that same brise-soleil along the back. We've removed the C-shaped structure that was along the back, and it does not project out as far. So go to the next one, Eliot. The rear portion, also the back went from 6 feet down to 5 feet for the entire structure, and the floor to ceiling was 14 and is now down to 13. So we've lowered the whole structure in the rear by 2 feet. These are the condenser locations. They're behind the parapet wall. They actually have a reading of 72 decibels. That's what this states up here. And just as a comparison, the sound of normal conversation standing 3 to 4 feet away is 60 decibels. So it kind of gives you a sense. And these are only required to be 8 feet, and we're about 15 feet off the property line, and they discharge straight up. So in terms of the sound, go to the next one, Eliot. This is now the way it fits in. And Commissioner Vogel, you had mentioned about the scale, and I think that this is a true computer rendering. This is the photo that was taken where the tree is in the back, so you see that tree. This is actually what you will see going down the side of the structure. This again is the 30-foot 10 parapet height here, so it's again lower. This is the 27-foot, so Susie, this is where we lowered the front, kept it as a flat roof. You're seeing the windows that march along with the vertical orientation. The front entry is now only 2 feet above grade. Here's grade, and we go up 2 feet to that front door. You're seeing the brise-soleil that comes through. The C shape is gone, which was here, so this is now just a thin brise-soleil. And then this shows, it's really kind of behind here, but this shows the 19-foot, it's 19-foot 8 for the parapet, for the handrail, for the front entry, for the front terrace. This is the start of the roof for that garage. So the idea is that where we're coming through, you'll see there's another drawing where it starts to come through and steps down in between these two structures. Really, these from the building here to this building, it steps through in that regard. You can also see, go back, you can see the materials now are just all stucco here, and the stone spine, you're seeing it from the middle. This is metal, and the windows are a bronze metal as well. Okay, go to the next one. So this again shows you the tree that is the actual photo. You can see the van that's here. That is that tree right there. Commissioner Vogel, again, that is what you see from the front. That's an actual computer rendered. You can see the spine that goes out over it. What we did with the garage doors, we took the horizontal brise-soleil line, we lined it up with a panel above, and then we have sconce lights that go through and line up over the door. So that's how we mediated from this side to here. This again is the current landscape. That is what you'll see down the side of the structure. Go to the next one, Eliot. So this now is a rendering how it looks walking down the street, so that you're seeing Harry's building now here coming up, and you're going to see how we nestle in back behind here. Again, that's what you actually see. The garage then to our south As you come to the south of the block, you're crossing the street. You're walking now north. You're seeing the building again in terms of the scale of it. That again right there is the length you will see. And then you're coming to the north. And then what we also, the next slide, let's show the next one then, Eliot. This just shows you also when we did the animation, this is now from the southern portion of the street. The animation obviously does not have landscape, so we wanted to show you the density of what is happening on the street, the density with the landscape from here, looking back at it. So now we have built a model that we want to show you, and we put it up on a 4-foot plinth, the tray. So you're going to look at it how you see it. It's not a bird's eye view. You're going to see it. So I wanted to. Can you get a sense of how you're seeing it? So you're seeing how the building is it the right height for you to see? So that I think is important to look at it, how you're seeing it. And what happens is you can see the relationship of this on the facade, and then you can see the relationship of these on the facade over here. So I think it's very interesting how it, and again, this is the actual massing of the model, the laser cut model. So you can see how it steps back to the south. Going down. So you can see, like, if you're coming now, and you can see how that front piece that meets with the garage to the south. So the next slide, this is showing, again, there we go. This is showing the height, kind of looking at the context of these 4 structures, but really looking in between. We are trying to then nestle in between the height of these 2 buildings here, and it does even actually work to the building two doors to our north. But the idea is that now the tip of that, with that new, it's dropped down by about 3 feet, is now actually utilizing that line as the piece. So the next slide, what I wanted to point out here is we have 956 square feet of allowable floor area, building lot coverage that we are not utilizing. There was some questions last time about how big it is. We did not maximize by zoning. We actually left approximately 1,000 square feet. It is a 4-bedroom home. There's a kid's bedroom here, and then the master bedroom right here. This is a home office on this side. This is a craft room, and then upstairs we have a guest room. So this is a 4-bedroom home. This is a 2-car garage. So again, I think keeping it in modest scheme. This is this play area courtyard. You can now see also the spine we brought as an architectural element all the way through the structure. So it's no longer just a little front piece. It actually knits the whole front to the back together. Okay, go to the next one, Eliot. So this now is that 4th bedroom. So again, these are not huge rooms. The idea then is that this is the sort of livable, habitable space. So family room, dining room, kitchen, breakfast area, and a music room with the center stair here. This is the spine again that comes through the 2nd floor, becomes the chimney, and then comes out in the rear. And this, just wanted to point out, this is, here we go, there we go. This is required to be 8 feet. That's the 8-foot line. We are 17'8" off of the property line for the condensers, and we are 10'4" from the property line to the generator. The generator will exercise, as they call it, once a week, so it will run for approximately 20 minutes once a week so that it is working. Then the next slide just really shows you the progression of where we've been with the large pieces of glass, the C shape, the multiple materials, the siding that was in here. We then simplified it the next time in where the C again is. Now it's stucco. Now you're seeing where the spine is now reading as an element, the vertical windows that march through, and the brise-soleil piece that's here. So just a visual of where we were and how we came. I think I would attribute to a lot of the comments that the commission has been helping us with. Go to the next. This shows you again where the siding and the stone is a blend, and we now are just doing it as stucco. The same with the blend here, and now we are just doing it with stucco. There, and then the same with the southern element. We did pull this forward so that we get a modulation from front. It recedes, comes back out, recedes, and comes back out. You're seeing the brise-soleil on the rear and the brise-soleil on the front. So you want to go to the standard?
How does this thing?
You got to shake it.
There we go. Excuse me, my name is Gary Shoemaker. I'm the preservation consultant working with the Sabos on the project. As Commissioner, or as Chair Williams mentioned a moment ago, we're going to address the 4 standards that the commissioners cited at our last meeting. The first one being height. If you look, this is the datum line that we've been discussing, the 35-foot line. As Fred mentioned earlier, we have dropped the height of this house to meet what would be the calculated average between those houses. The house has come down significantly. That was a comment that we've heard from the commission, and we feel like we've addressed. We think it's important to see that transition between these 3 particular houses. That seems to be the focus that the commission has been looking for there. Next slide, please. There we go. Again, looking at the average heights on the block, the maximum height of our structure now, Eliot, I can't read that from here. The maximum height of our structure is well below the average of the block. We were about the 4th lowest coming in. We're probably significantly below that at this point. We've dropped the house several feet, both in vertical height and floor-to-floor level. So that was something that we had talked about with the commission last time as well. The next slide there. All right. Standard number 2, which was the proportion of the facades. We've revised this diagram, again showing these heavy red outlines are the vertical facades, the prominent facades against the street wall. You can see now that the modulation and the movement between the foreground and the background of this house are now much more in keeping with what the adjacent houses are. This house, of course, having sloped roofs, but this house having a tall gable wall. You'll notice in the subsequent diagrams that these rear surfaces of the house set back align with the vertical faces, the prominent vertical faces of the houses to the south. The forward-facing facade, the prominent facade here, is aligned with the prominent face of the houses to the north. So we believe, just as we've mitigated the height, we've mitigated the proportion of the facades relative to the street wall setback. This is a slide that you've seen before. We've talked about the prominence of the vertical facades and the orientation of these. We can go to the next slide. Excuse me. Slide number 3, proportions of openings. As Fred mentioned, we've responded to the Commission's concerns. The proportion of the windows that we're now showing in this are vertical, rectangular windows, much more in keeping with the windows on the immediately adjacent houses, the one to the north and one to the south in particular. The large panels of glass are now excluded from the front facade, and the rhythm is more in keeping with what you would see on these homes, on this home, on the examples of ours on this side of the street, and where's Harry's house? Yeah, and these. So you'll notice in our drawings that the proportion of these windows, the proportions of these windows are very much in keeping and similar. Next slide. Okay. We think this is an important point to make as well. We've talked specifically with a couple of the commissioners in the past meetings about datums and alignments relative to these houses. The red line that you see across the top takes roughly the center second story window of the major houses to the north and continues it across. You'll see here that it is roughly the midpoint of the second story windows here. It's the sill of the second story windows on this house. It's the midpoint of the windows on the house immediately to the north. And it aligns with the sill again on our house. And finally, the midpoint of the second story windows on the house to the south of us. On the first floor, again, by lowering the first floor by the 2 feet, by 2 feet, we also pick up the center lines of the entry doors, the entry sequences, and the prominent forward-facing facades of these houses, including the house immediately to the north and immediately to the south. So keeping these datums as part of what has driven the proportions, height, scale, and rhythm of openings, solids to voids in this project have clearly been taken from the immediately adjacent context. So, okay. Again, again, looking at the rhythm, the horizontal banding of these windows, we still maintain that the rhythm on houses of similar architectural style maintain the same rhythm that we've continued on our project. So, next, I believe the next one. So, the rhythms of solids and voids in the facade. We've revised the diagram as we've shown you before, showing the relationship of the front facade. The lighter hatch being the northernmost side of the building, which picks up on these lines, which align with the facades much further to the north and address the forward nature of the house to the north. The darker section addressing the houses and the vertical facade to the south of this building, which we spoke about a moment ago in the proportion of facades and the rhythm. So again, looking at again, looking at the setback lines that Fred had mentioned earlier, the green line you see here corresponds with the forward-facing facade, the most prominent facade of the house, which addresses the structures immediately to the north, which set a precedent to the south, the higher second story, the main facades of the houses beyond the garages, which align with the setback on the front face of our house. That is a slight revision. We pushed that back to align more carefully with those southern facades. And again, pointing out that the average setbacks established both by the entirety of the neighborhood on the east side and the immediately adjacent context. This house is well within both of those standards. And the next one, we talked a little bit about the spacing on the street. You can see, as the rendering and the model also showed, the spacing and the rhythm between these structures remains compatible with the rest of the block. We showed you a rendering last time that showed a blue void space between these buildings, which indicated a similarity between these. What's the next slide here? The forward projecting rhythm on the street, also the forward projecting garages, the large facades and the prominent openings, the forward projecting garage, the prominent opening, and again, the prominent spine and the garage door in keeping with the alternating rhythm that run through those, that run down the street. Next slide for me. And we revised this one. This one was relative to standard number 7, which I think we're not going to address. Can you skip forward to 10? There we go. There we go. So one of the things that we talked about last time, there were some comments about the scale of the structure relative to the street. We've shown here the lot widths and the occupancy of the houses along the street. We had shown you before in a diagram the solid to void, or the building to opening, showing that rhythm was consistent. That obviously hasn't changed as the width of this building hasn't changed, but you can see that based on the width of the lot and the width of the structure on the lot, we are in keeping with the average of how each of these structures occupies its own site. We are occupying 80% of the lot front. The house immediately to the south is 79. To the south of that is 79. To the north is 82. 82 up here. The largest of the lots is at 67. These houses are in excess of that as well. So, our next slide. I think that was the last one relative to 10, wasn't it? Yeah. So those are the revisions to the slides that we've made that relate to the 4 standards that we talked about, and touching on standard number 3 as well. So, Sue.
Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm Sue Sabo, owner of 917 Edgemere Court, along with my husband, Adam. He's actually traveling for work this week, so we couldn't be here. We just wanted to say we appreciate the time here, and we've worked really hard over the past months and years with our team here to try and respond to the comments that we've heard here, and we really do believe that we've addressed all the points that have been raised in the last meeting. We look forward to moving through the process and being able to build our dream home here in Evanston, and we are happy to answer any questions that you have at this time. Thanks again.
Did the commissioners have any points of clarification at this point? Because otherwise we'll move on to comment. I want to thank all of you for actually very seriously taking to heart the comments that the commission made in September.
Thank you.
Do we have the sign-in sheet?
Somewhere around circulation.
Can we see the model? Sure, if you want to just turn it around.
Just do it so it's eye level. So if you look, you know that this is. I'm trying to do it.
Before we begin public comment, we have a few folks signed up to speak specifically to this case. We did receive a communication from Mr. William Goldstein, who lives at 940 Edgemere Court, and he writes, it's addressed to me. I am writing to express my opposition to a certificate of appropriateness for the property at 917 Edgemere Court as presented. The design still fails to comply with issues cited by Architect Preservationist Doug Gilbert and Architect Preservation Commissioner Julie Hacker. Please reject this request until plans are brought into compliance. Sincerely, Mr. Goldstein. Okay. We're going to begin public comment, as I mentioned earlier, specific to 917 Edgemere. You will all be limited to 3 minutes. There will be no ceding of time or passing along time. We need to move things along tonight. As you've likely all seen, we do have a lot of cases tonight. We want to be fair to all of the applicants. So first up is Harry Lawrence. Just, we'll move this one here for right now, and then we'll move them both out of the way, frankly.
Sorry about that. What I've done is that this is the same model that was at the last meeting back in September, on September 5th. And I had the model makers pull out the house that was here before and then insert their new plans, the new plans that are presently being presented. Now, even though they allege that, well, they say they lowered it by 3 feet, it's still too high. It's just way too high and too massive compared to everything else. Just remind you now, this is the narrowest lot on the block. This is only 50 feet. This is 70, 70, 70, 87, and 60. And then these are all 62. So when you're seeing this, there's a lot of house that sits on here. Regarding the height, oh, could you go back to that very first photo you had, the aerial view with the original house that was there, that Mediterranean house that was torn down? All right, right here, if you see here, this is in view as a flat road. But look how much lower it is. This is 919, this is my house. It was substantially lower than my house. And the other homes that they made comparable to this, the Lakeshore Boulevard and the Greenwood home that's under construction now, are much, they're like 20 foot and 25 feet. So again, I'm sorry. I thought you could hear me without a mic.
It's good for the video.
So in any event, those are my comments. I'm still here with respect to height and mass. And it just seems like they're still way too high because it's hitting it's not even below down to the ridge of the roof. And I mean, there it is. You see it on both models. You can see it on both models, the massiveness of that building. Let me see if I have anything else. Portion of time. And then regarding, I already touched upon the roof issue with the previous, the small Mediterranean house that was there. But this is at least 10 feet higher than that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Harry. Next is Jackie, and I always mispronounce your name, Criffield? Criffield, thank you. And if you could state your address too, please.
Sure. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
You may want to pull the mic down just a touch.
Is this better?
Yes.
Okay. I'm at 911, right next door, so concerned. I just want to say that I really do believe that this commission is trying very hard to preserve and protect this little historic neighborhood on Edgemere within the larger historic neighborhood of the Lakeshore District. And by rigidly applying the standards for appropriateness of a new house. It is the standards and not a sentiment for the applicant or how many times that they have appeared that should be the deciding factor here tonight. There's already one grossly out of place new house on the east side of Edgemere, built there through deception and lies to this commission, to the city, and to the neighbors. If this large house, and it is a large house, it looms over our house to the south, is allowed to be built, this is going to open the door even wider to this type of development by those who feel that it's their right to do so on valuable property. This This is the second largest house, as Harry said, on the narrowest lot. So we basically got a 10-pound sausage and a 5-pound casing. And what will be left to preserve if this kind of building on that street continues, which it is likely to. While some might feel sympathy for the applicant and have indicated that they do, this is not a basis on which to issue a COA, simply being worn down. The standards must dictate. There have been changes made to the design, but the fundamental problems with the size and the height and the mass have not been sufficiently addressed. There are no other 5-foot above ground basements. I know it's only 2 feet right in the front, but it is a 5-foot above ground basement in this house, which there are none of those on the street. Incompatibility, especially with the 2 neighboring houses, which a commission member earlier said is the most important consideration for a new group, is just not there. There's a lot for every house and a house for every lot, and the house for 917 must fit the lot and belong in the historic neighborhood as an example of good preservation. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Joan Rothenberg.
I'm Joan Rothenberg. I live at 901 Edgemere Court, the house at the south end, the smallest house on the block. And I don't really have anything to add, just to say that I really support what both of my neighbors have said. I'm very concerned about the short and long-term impact on our neighborhood of building such a large house. I think it is a beautiful building that's been proposed. I think it deserves space of its own.
Thank you. Next is Pauline Sheehan.
Hello, my name is Pauline Sheehan. I live at 920 Edgemere Court. I do want to commend the team for greatly improving the design aesthetically. I think it's a more coherent and sophisticated design, and I think if anything comes of this exercise, that will be a positive. However, I do think that it's still up on a 5-foot high basement, which at least 3 commissioners objected to at the last meeting. It really boosts it up, and although the entrance is lowered to closer to grade, once you get inside the house, there are more steps inside. So the mass of the house is still boosted up by 5 feet, which seems unnecessary for a basement that is just mechanical space and storage and unoccupied, especially because you can get away with lower ceiling heights by code in such spaces. The total reduction in height from the beginning to this point, as far as I can calculate, is at most 2 feet 7 inches, which is not really a great reduction in height, and I think there's still room by lowering the basement and perhaps lowering the floor-to-floor heights. You could, I think, take out another couple of feet. Every standard that where they compared to other contemporary houses in the neighborhood that had such inverted plans, they compared to 2 buildings mostly. 1030 Lakeshore Boulevard, which I think won an award, and that house is only 20 feet 8 inches high at the back, and it slopes up slightly at the front to what I can calculate at best is 21 feet 6. And if you look at these, you could go up and maybe show them. You can see how that house, all the images are really tightly cropped and they don't show the house in context. But here you can see how that house at Lakeshore Boulevard relates to its neighbors and how it might look if it were as high as the house that's proposed. Finally, I think part of the reason that you're having a strong reaction from the neighborhood is because everybody never wants what was built at 925 to happen again. We all wonder, how did this happen? How was it approved? It really is, 2 wrongs don't make a right, and taking a mistake as a standard, I don't think, is going to help in the long run. And then finally, as far as lot coverage goes, that courtyard is also elevated 5 feet above grade. And we're wondering if the basement extends under that area and if that would be included in lot coverage and the area of the house. And then finally,
If you can wrap it up.
yeah, just the last thing I would recommend is, given the large areas of glazing facing the lake, you might want to consider using some kind of a fritted pattern on the glass, because you might end up with a lot of dead birds in your backyard, because they do tend to crash into the glass.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just as a clarification, there is no basement under the courtyard, it is earth under the courtyard.
Okay,
Just as a
okay.
clarification.
Thank you. Next is Philip Crutchfield.
Thank you. My name is Philip Crutchfield. I'm co-owner of 911. At the last meeting, I stated that the application should not be considered at this time because it is based on a faulty zoning analysis. The same holds true here. A portion of the land on the east side of the lot is reclaimed public land and should not be considered in this analysis. It's not within your purview to evaluate that, but I am reserving all rights with respect to that issue going forward. The applicant has focused your attention on the street side of Edgemere Court. However, the overriding test of standards 1, 3, 4, and 10 is visual compatibility with the properties, structures, sites, public ways, objects, and places to which it is visually related. Therefore, the street is not the only frame of reference for this analysis. You should be looking at the totality of this proposed structure in relation to its neighbors. There's also been much discussion as to whether Lake Michigan is a public way. Putting that aside, there is another public way that must be considered, and that is Clark Park, immediately to the south of Edgemere Court. And if I might, go away from me, let me turn this around. This is Clark Park. We have previously provided photographs of this perspective from Clark Park. You can clearly see all of the properties from 911 or 917 all the way south. When you look at this from this public way, you can see that the proposed structure is visually incompatible with the three structures to the south. It projects out, it masses over the remaining structures to the south. So we ask you, please consider the public way from Clark Park. And thank you for your service.
Thank you. Next is Doug Gilbert.
Good evening, Douglas Gilbert of Douglas Gilbert Architects, 220 South Maple in Oak Park. I'm here representing and consulting with the Edgemere Court neighbors. I also would state to begin with a number of the design changes that have made considerable improvements to the aesthetic character with the neighborhood, but my evaluation still maintains that the height is an overriding issue. Could you flip to, actually you could start with number 9 because it'll probably come up on of the slides there. This image you can see sort of an elevation. The height of the parapet, of the upper parapet, will be 30'10". That's just a couple feet shorter than the ridge line of the neighboring house, and the eave line of the neighboring house is at 23 feet. So it's considerably more than the eave line. And if you kind of look at this drawing and you kind of do a visual or take a straight edge across, you can see that the eave lines of the neighboring house, 9 919, sorry, I don't have my glasses on, 919, they're pretty consistent eave lines as you go to the north with the two-story houses. If you flip to page, or item 24, this represents also the height issue pretty well because it's a nice direct comparison to 919 Edgemere. And again, you can see that the parapet of essentially the top part of the house, not counting the stone spine, is 30 foot 10. The ridge line of the roof of 919 is 34 foot 4. So just not even about 3 feet shorter. The eave line is marked at 23 feet, so it's over 7 feet taller than the eave line, and that's the top of, including the parapet, that's the top of the second floor of a two-story house to the eave line of a two-story house. It's at 23 foot. So that's the difference here in height that we're really talking about, and I think this really illustrates that pretty well. And additionally, the top of the porch element is at 19 foot 8. It's not marked on there in this case in that drawing, but compare that again to the eave line. That's the top of the porch for the second floor balcony off their, I think it's their playroom, and that's just about 2 feet shorter, 2 or 3 feet, about 3 feet shorter than the eave line as well. So would maintain that the height is an issue. There seem to be ways to address that. It's a little bit misleading in the models that you see in that they've pushed the house fairly far back, which kind of mitigates that appearance of the height because it's set back.
If you can
Yep.
wrap it up.
Yep, so
Thank
I
you.
think that actually pretty well wraps it up. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Fred and all, did you have any comments that you wanted to make?
Yeah, just one comment.
If you could speak into the microphone.
yeah.
Why don't we get all of them out of the
What I want to point out again, it goes back to Commissioner Vogel. This discussion of it appears to be bigger than it is. It appears
Excuse
to
me,
be.
Fred, just 1 second. Yeah. Harry, if I can ask you to move your model out of the way as well, please.
I'm sorry. So I just wanted to point out that, again, the words, it appears to be taller than it is. It visually is not being represented accurately. This is what it will look like in the neighborhood. And we can do the driver, the walk through the neighborhood again to show you how that feels. The pushing back of it, yes, Harry's house is abnormally pushed forward. We've then pushed back with what we consider the two anomalies, if you will, north of us. We pushed back to what we consider the wall of the neighborhood. And that's, again, why I wanted to point out, with landscape and with the context of the eave lines and where the building is, in our opinion, we mediate nicely into that neighborhood. So,
Thank you. Commissioner, questions, comments, observations? If you want to, use the mic, Carl.
I think you guys did a great job. I think it's a lot more refined and more elegant, the new design. It's simpler, and I think less is more. The animation is very helpful. Your model is very helpful. And I think that the facade massing being lowered 3 feet really does help it nestle into the block. And I think that the chimney spine lining up with, in the middle of the house kind of like slims it down, like a fat guy wearing a black suit with a white striping though. So anyway, so I think those things actually help, but I still feel for the neighbors because like the front is perfect, right? Like we all love it, it's super elegant, it's modern, it's cool. But then it's gonna be like this giant thing, like plunked into the middle of that street. The problem is, neighbors, is that it's no matter what is built there, it's gonna be this giant thing plunked into the middle of that. Like it's a 50 by 350 foot lot. You know what I mean? So it's like no matter who built something there, like you're not asking for a zoning variance. That's you can build that. Like, this isn't something you can't build. So I think it's like a really hard, like every time I hear you guys, I'm like, okay, I agree. And then every time I hear the neighbors, I'm like, I agree with them. So I'm like befuddled because it's like, you're both right. So I don't know like what the answer is because you are literally both correct. Like you guys have done so much bent over backwards to make this so much more elegant and so much more simple. I mean, beautiful, right? But it's still like an apartment block that's gonna be in the middle of this lot. But like but that's their right to build an apartment block in the middle of this lot because, you know, so it's like, it's just, I'm confused.
Still 1,000 feet under what they're allowed to do.
I know there's weird things about Edgemere because like, you know, like the property lines go into the middle of the street, which is like nobody else's house is like that. So I know that's a little weird, but yeah, I find it like really super confusing because I sort of like, you guys make your presentation, I'm like, yes. Then you guys make your presentation, I'm like, yes. So like, I'm like totally confused.
Okay, thanks
Sorry.
for clarifying
No, but
that.
it's better, right? It's
Yeah.
so much better.
Yeah,
You've
the
done so
design
much
is,
to make it better.
the design is much better.
But it's still-
Other questions about the new design? Susie?
I don't have any questions, no.
Okay. Jamie?
No questions, I feel similarly.
Yeah, it's like, sorry.
Tim?
Do we have any input from, so Clark Park, is it Clark Park, was brought up and previously, while there may have been photos shown, I don't know that we talked about that.
Yeah.
Public
In terms of
way
the question of the
perspective.
public way
I mean, what I've had
issue.
to do, much like, you know, the conflict that you expressed is just remember that our purview is the public way. And while I feel for neighbors and, you know, and the situation and have my own opinions, I have to remember that we are restricted to the public way, and much to my disappointment, the lake is no longer, for whatever reason, according to legal, but there is, they call it a park apparently, so I don't know
Well,
what.
I want to go back to the updated ordinance to see what our definition of public way is in there, so we can use that as guidance, because all of this has to really reflect what's in the ordinance. Or where we talk about public way specifically. I'm trying to find it. Oh, where is it? Where am I missing? Oh, here we go. Yeah, this gets to really kind of what our purview is in the, within the ordinance, and it's under the definition of exterior architectural appearance. And the definition reads, the architectural character and general composition of the exterior of a site, building, structure, or object visible from a public street or public way, including but not limited to the kind and texture of the building material and the type, design, and character of all architectural details and elements, including but not limited to roofs, eaves, windows, walls, doors, stairs, balustrades, railings, light rails, trim, and signs. For the purpose of this chapter, the public way does not include Lake Michigan. So, public street or public way. So, that's how it's addressed. Carlos, do you have any guidance in that regard?
Can you go back to the elements that constitute the purview?
Okay, hold on. The architectural architectural character and general composition of the exterior of a site, building, structure, or object visible from a public street or public way, including but not limited to, essentially, it's the building materials, type, design, and character of all architectural details and elements, including but not limited to roofs, eaves, windows, walls, doors, stairs, balustrades, railings, light fixtures, trim, and signs.
So it says included but not limited to. That's what I speak of mass or scale. It does speak of roof.
Good evening. Hi.
Hi, Johanna.
I've asked law.
Okay, good, thank you.
They're in the building. They're just not at this meeting. There's a lot of meetings going on right now.
Okay, perfect, thank you. So other questions while we wait for a response? Robert, do you have a question?
I don't have a question, but I do echo Carl's comments on this is a very narrow lot, and I don't think you guys could have done any better with this. And I appreciate, how you've significantly reduced the height and scale, or mass, I should say. Yeah, that's about it. It's really, really, really tough one. So I would probably say yes.
Do we have the gentleman at 9 to the south of the proposed property mentioned photos from Clark Park?
We did not have the opportunity to produce those photos given the short time available. I would just add that at the last meeting, you considered a project out in the northwest Evanston where the question was was the golf course a public way? And you've answered that yes, and you evaluated from the perspective.
Yeah, we just want to, particularly in this situation, we want to.
And I would submit that Clark Park is no different than
that's
than the golf course.
understandable, but I think we want to make sure that we're doing what we should be here.
Most of the parks are. I think there are a few that are weird.
Do you guys have like a side view, like what this would look like from the side that's in color like this, kind of like similar to this?
Just right at the next slide, that's what you see. That is, again, that's 100% accurate, the depth of the building from the street. Or the public way.
Do you have the other side?
The other side or the other shot, you don't see it because of the landscape. That is what you will see from the public way. So they are accurate drawings. So in that side, because we have the courtyard, you will see the front keys, and then the courtyard drops in. You understand what I mean?
So, just as my comments, I think the suggestions that I made at the last meeting, I think you guys have met my requests of those. I think you have significantly reduced the height and the small site and the constraints that you have. You've changed the proportions and you've adjusted the front so that it looks more appropriate from the street public way. So I know that my fellow commissioners are having a battle between these two. I think and this is merely my opinion, I think that this would meet my requirements for the standards. Just as food for thought.
Thanks, Susie. Wait for 2 minutes.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but
Yes,
with
you're-
respect to the perspective from Clark Park, within the Evanston neighborhood position statement, that 42-page document, there are some pictures of that perspective. And I know that you do have that.
Yeah, we do.
But I don't know if you have
I think that we would have to dig that up. I think Johanna, do you have an answer from them?
Mario Tredo has said it's not a thoroughfare, so it's not considered a public right-of-way.
Okay, thank you. That's our answer.
Other golf course is?
Is it thoroughfare?
No.
Yes, so I guess, are there any other questions or comments specific to the applicants? Are we ready to entertain a motion on this one? Okay, someone want to make a motion?
You're referring to me.
Yeah, yeah, you get to.
I move to issue a certificate of appropriateness to 917 Edgemere Court for the construction on a vacant lot of a new 2-story stucco and stone single-family residence with a 2-car attached garage. Applicable standards include construction 1 through 11, 13, 14, and 16.
Second.
Robert, you second? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay.
So there were 4.
Did you vote in favor? Okay, 4,
4.
2.
Motion.
So it passed.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next. Oh, if you could, yeah, just a couple of minutes. If the case from 90 Kedzie Street could come up, please. They're up there. Right, we're ready with 90 Kedzie. If you want,
There's a sign-up sheet, guys.
yeah.
We signed up on
Matt,
the
I
preview.
think Matt already signed.
Both Claire and I have signed on the
Yeah, okay.
sign-up sheet.
If you can go ahead, Matt,
This is
and,
the application.
Oh, sure.
oh, okay.
No problem.
Yeah, I think some of the applicants signed on this, so. but
It was
we'll-
just making its way around, so
Yeah.
a lot of us were just signing it.
Okay, if you can go ahead and begin your
You want me to go
presentation.
to the visuals?
You don't have to, yeah, I'm just going to do a quick handoff here. So my name is Matt Rogers. I'm a zoning consultant. Worked with this particular property we presented to you back in June. We were seeking a zoning variation for the front yard. And we've moved the process through ZBA and have been given an approval for a 42-inch fence with 52-inch piers in the front yard. And so we are now moving into the next phase. When we presented to you last time, we talked about how we didn't have materials selected because we didn't know where we were building a fence. At this point now we know where we're building a fence, so we have also selected materials. The property owner has contracted with Kettle Camp and Kettle Camp for this particular work, and Claire Kettlecamp is here to present that for you.
Don't mind. Again, I had everything ready, but they installed their own equipment now. I have to find where my stuff is. Yeah.
Okay. Or do you want me to hook mine up there?
Pass. Let me see if I can get. I think I'll be able to get it.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
In the interest of kind of filling some time here, I'll give you a little additional information while that's going on. So since right, that's what I was going to do. That's what I was going to do. So since we were last here, we did receive permission from the city to place a temporary fence in. So we have installed a chain link, 6-foot chain link fence around to secure the property for the owners, as well as installing a 6-foot wood fence across the lot, which is actually at 92 Kedzie there to the right of the house. So that's the conditions as they stand right now. That temporary fence is due to be removed in November, and so that's why we're moving ahead now with this. And just as a point of reference, the wood fence that you see there has not been secured into the ground. It is purely a cosmetic approach so that people were not looking at a chain link fence. We wanted to have something nicer there for neighbors to look at. So now I'll turn it over to Claire.
Slide correct?
That's correct, yes. Right, so we're working on a fence for the property, and the blue line, I don't have a pointer.
There's a pointer there.
Is there one? I didn't see one up here. I thought maybe it had walked out with the previous group or something, so I will look
the certificate of appropriateness for.
So the blue line represents the variance that we've been granted for the front yard fence. And the orange line below it is technically the side yard fence. And we are proposing, well, I guess the two views we'll look at. So view A, Matt, if you could just motion view A, which is on the top right, is looking from the driveway looking west at the side yard fence. And view B is from Clark Square Park along the lakefront edge looking into the property on the east side. So those are the two existing conditions. There you go. So thank you. The proposal is for a 6-foot wood fence to be permanently installed on the side and rear lot lines, which is the bottom image. But we're proposing landscaping. There will be faced with an evergreen hedge, flowering trees, and flowering shrubs. So from the public right-of-way, you actually won't see the wood fence. And the second image is the front yard fence that we've been granted, 42 inches in height, iron fence with 52-inch height masonry piers. The brick, we're hoping to use a stash of brick from the house. They had some additions done in the 1980s, and we think we have enough brick to do the masonry piers. And then we'll stretch the 42-inch high iron fence between the piers. And that's the approval from the Zoning Board of Appeals. So that's
Okay.
the presentation.
Questions from the commission? The only one that I had was, what you show as the gate post lanterns, are they that actual size? Are they that large?
No, that's an accessory, and quite honestly, we may or may not install the
Okay.
lights.
Because it seemed like they were, even though I know the fence height is what was approved by ZBA, they appeared, at least on the drawings, that we had to be out of scale with.
There is one light
Fences,
fixture on the house that is of a large architectural scale, but we have we're seeking approval before we go through the bid process.
Okay.
So we're not sure if we're going to do the electrical component.
Any other questions?
You said that the plantings will go around all of the wood fence on all sides, or just the one in the front?
On the public right of way.
Okay.
Are there other questions, Tim or Carl?
Looks better. It does not. It's an improvement.
I was just curious, is the plan still to fence the lakeside as well? Is that still?
The owner has small children, so there will be a short iron fence that's transparent, but it's going to meet pool code.
Okay. So. Any final questions? Are we ready to entertain a motion on this? And essentially, I just want to make sure that the applicable standards are for construction 1, 4, 5, 7, 9, 10, 12, and 13. And in the motion, we should acknowledge that it has been approved, that the proposed fence heights have been approved by ZBA. So we can have a motion on that.
Should we call out the lamps as well, or
I think that we should, that we would like something more in scale, and that can potentially be shown to Carlos if you wish.
Okay.
So, okay.
I move that we issue a certificate of appropriateness for the property at 90 Kedzie Street, in that the standards for construction 1, 4, 5, 7, 9, 10, 12, and 13 have been met, and that the fence heights have been approved by ZBA. Is that accurate? And also with noting the condition that the front lanterns should be considered more in keeping or more in scale with the property.
Okay, that's fine. Is there a second?
Standards, did he say the standards?
Yeah, I think,
did.
yes, you did. Yeah. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, Jamie, second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, any abstentions? Okay.
Abstain.
Oh, you abstain, okay. One abstention, Carlos?
Okay.
Robert? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
The next item of old business is 834 Madison, and the applicant has requested to continue the application until further notice. I assume that means that essentially they've withdrawn this particular one and
I
will...
got a call and they will consider their application as until further notice.
Okay, so...
We need a motion.
Yeah, I think so. I thought that we always needed to continue something to a date certain.
There is no date certain for them. They have not made up their minds in terms of what, they decided not to go with the contractor,
Okay,
and they are traveling for the next couple months, so they don't know exactly what they're going to do.
So should we just move to continue it to?
Till they're.
why don't we, you know what, why don't we move to continue it to January, just to get around their
Okay.
situation to the January meeting, and then if necessary, we can do a continuation, because I feel uncomfortable not doing it to a date certain. We'll do it to January, which, yeah, so it should be the 8th. So,
Go ahead.
All right, I move that we move the property at 834 Madison to the January 8th meeting.
Yeah, January 8, 2019.
January.
Okay, is there a second? Tim?
Second.
All in favor? Signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. Okay, moving on to new business. The first item is 1047 Forest Avenue, and if I could ask you folks to, if you haven't, I think you may have signed in on the other sheet. I have too many papers here, but if you would re-sign in. And introduce yourselves, please.
My name is Brett Gadsden. I'm here on behalf of myself and my wife, Natasha Trethway. We're the owners of 1047 Forest Avenue.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm Steve Liska with Liska Architects. I'm the architect for Brett Gadsden and Natasha Trethway at 1047 Forest Avenue.
Trying to get a pointer.
Oh, okay.
Unfortunately, there is no.
If you can move the thing, something's blocking the. Okay.
All right.
If we need to, we'll just have the applicants go up to the screen, I think, at this
Or
point.
I can use the pointer here.
Okay. Do you have one?
Sorry, Gary's coming.
Oh, there you go.
No, it won't change the slides though. All right.
That's all right. We can make sure that happens. Okay, if you want to go ahead and begin, please, Mr. Liska.
All right. This is an 1897 neoclassical style house done by Harvey Page. He was a prominent Washington, D.C. architect before he moved to Chicago. He's done a couple of houses in the area that I know of in this sort of style, which he was well known for. He only spent a few years here and ended up moving to Texas to continue his work on neoclassical architecture that sort of morphed into a Spanish colonial style. He has a number of landmark buildings throughout the country. Back in November of last year, this house had a fire, and we are in the process of restoring it. The changes we're asking for today are more owner-driven at this stage rather than fire-driven. These are design changes to the exterior. The 5 things are a new front door, various windows around the house, some new paneling at the southeast bay, and wood storm windows all around the house at all of the existing and new double hung windows. Oh, and the last thing is we're asking for a canopy above the rear entrance, partly as just cover for an entrance. They have a detached garage, and so they would like somewhere where you can be safe from the rain or the snow when you're trying to fumble with your keys. Let's see. This particular slide shows down in the lower left corner of the building, next to the southeast bay, there is the canopy that we're proposing. Oh, yeah, Brett, if you want to. Yeah, just in there. this board, this is the new canopy that we're asking for. It projects out about 3 feet. It's roughly 9 feet wide. It tucks into the corner between the southeast bay and the main kitchen and bedroom bay at the back of the house. We intend to do it with classical moldings, the proportion of the cornice we think is in keeping with the details of the house. We will do simple brackets on either side of it that will highlight it as an entrance to the house. We didn't want to get too formal or detailed with it. So it is a rear entrance, but we thought it needed a little bit of decoration.
Steve, can you speak to the microphone?
Yeah. So this is a 3D perspective of the house where you can see the brackets and the canopy. It's, again, like I said, it's going to tuck into the corner. We don't want it to be prominent or overbearing. We just wanted to highlight the entrance and provide protection. It will have a metal roof as well, something that's durable, something that is in keeping with what might have been used at the time the house was built, something the rubberized membranes or bitumen didn't seem appropriate to put on a structure. Let's see. While we're on the back of the house here, up at the main bay, we're going to add a couple of round windows, some wooden windows that will operate. The window on the right is for Brett's office. The window on the left, we're tucking a bathroom into that corner, so we wanted to have some natural light in that corner. The thinking behind the round windows is that there are round windows in different parts of the house, and because of the placement between the pilasters and the central window, the round shape seems to navigate that complicated space. Let's see, and then on the southeast bay, further to the left on the drawing, the second floor has a bedroom in that space. We're proposing to change the 3 windows on that elevation to just the 2 with a panelized space in between. The paneling detail matches a similar detail on the north facade of the building. Right, if I could have you flip that around.
Which
So this panel detail back one more, yes. That panel detail with the sort of square offset molding in the corners, we're gonna imitate that. What we're attempting to do with that rear bay is to make the design of it more sensitive to the existing house. It has a long and sordid history of being remodeled. The last iteration pretty much took all the character away. It is siding. Let's see if you could flip to page B. So I think it's. Oh, I'm sorry. C or D should show you. So this is the existing, you can see on the right hand, the existing 2-story bay. The 2 windows at the top are just sort of randomly placed. Almost nothing about this house is asymmetrical. They're not sized similarly to other windows. They don't align with anything. They are damaged, so we need to replace them anyway. So in our proposal, we're trying to rework the windows so that they are symmetrical and balanced on the facades.
What shape would that be?
So it would be, I believe, G. So here we are putting in a single window. It's larger. We tuck it up to the entablature. We're going to add the typical wood second floor casing trim as a piece of molding that wraps the entablature and then is the casing on the sides of the window. This is the typical detail on the other second floor windows on the rest of the house. On this elevation too, the lower portion of that bay, we're going to wrap that portion with stile and rail trim with paneling. What we're attempting to do here is the two windows that look into the breakfast room, we don't want them just sort of floating out in the siding. So we're proposing that paneling will wrap that lower portion of the breakfast room on the three sides, the west, south, and east side, create a nice band of material that holds all the windows and the various different elements together. There is also a fireplace that's going on the interior wall of the breakfast room there, so we have a direct vent that we have to capture for that to just sort of sit out in the middle of siding. Seemed awkward and unthoughtful. Also on this elevation, toward the left-hand side, we're adding a new wood double-hung window. Yes, right there. That's looking into the library. During demolition on the interior, we found the framing for a window that was proposed to be there originally. So we are hoping to just take advantage of that framing and put this in, get some nice south light into the library. The trim elements, the storm windows, the actual frame and sashes of that new window, we are having all custom made so that it will match exactly the other wood windows in the house. We have some craftsmen who they make these windows out of cypress to the exact details, and they've taken other sashes and frames from the house already so that they can do that. Let's see. On this elevation, you can see on the right side how far the canopy sticks out in relation to the rest of the building. It's 3 feet out, so not a overbearing canopy. Let's see. Also on this elevation, I guess, doesn't entirely show, if you go over to page I, so here are some of the details that we're including on all of the new windows, a close-up of the detailing on the paneling and the canopy and the brackets. What we're proposing for the storm windows is a wood storm window with a stored glass panel. It will have 2 glass panels. One will be stored. We'll have a separate screen on the bottom. We hope to detail it nearly exactly to what the old windows are, except to make it function a little more like a modern window, but with the wood frame. And then the photos on the right of that page show the head details and the sill details and the casing details that we'll use for any new wood double hung windows. The round windows, we do have to use a flexible trim for the casing, and I show that detail at the top of the page there. Let's see, if you could go to page E. Sorry, I'm jumping around a little bit here. So on the front of the house, we are going to get rid of the Pella double door that is the main front door. It's a clad aluminum door. I'm not sure how long ago it was installed. It doesn't seem really in character with the house. So we're proposing to do a solid door instead of an all glass door with some side lights that we feel are sympathetic to the house. So it would be a wood door. We'll do a panelized lower portion on the side lights and decorative true divided lights up above. The existing fan light transom will stay, the existing casing and the key at the top of the trim, that will all stay. So this is, it's just the door and the side lights that we're replacing. Let's see. So if you could go to page H. So over on the left, we have a little bit of the southeast bay that projects forward. We are keeping the windows on the first floor, adding sort of the same panelized system that is on the south. We're retreating the simple 1x4 casing around the windows with historic moldings, again, to match the rest of the house. And then the second floor window it is a new window, but again, the trim and all the details we're attempting to match the rest of the house. I think I've explained every little bit that we're doing. And all of these things, the owners love this house. They love all of the rich character, the symmetry, the detailing that is still there. They're very proud to be there. While we are sad that it has had a fire, it is partly an opportunity now to try to make it a better house than it was. So that's what we're hoping for.
Okay, thank you.
Questions from the commissioners?
I have a question about the Aztec PVC panels. Do you have a sample of that?
Oh, I don't. With me, it's a sheet good. To get a large panelized surface like that, you could use some sort of MDF product and paint it. The PVC is longer lasting. It's a smooth surface, and we will paint it so it will read pretty much like wood when it's done. We can also assemble it in large sheets and then cover it with the stile and rails, and that way it's far more watertight against the sheathing underneath.
So each panel area is seamless, it's one large sheet?
Yeah, there may be one or two seams, but we'll minimize the seams. We won't have a dozen seams.
What elevation are you referring to?
There's some on the sheet on
On
G.
G and on H.
Yeah, and also on H.
Now, above on G, above the panels, are those windows? Is that the windows approved in a?
Yes.
a
Yes,
previous-
there are 2 windows that were accepted under a previous COA. This particular COA, we're asking for the paneling around those.
Around those, and that is going to match the siding that's there? Is that what? Am I misunderstanding that?
So any siding that we might have to replace,
Yeah.
we're going to keep the same as the rest of
The house, okay.
Yes, this band here on the free side panel.
Okay. My only other concern, and I haven't heard this from Jamie or from any other folks, is on H, the size of the one panel that's on the second story seems a little large to me compared to, what was there and what the openings are. Can you tell me a little bit about the thinking there?
Partly it's that the 2 double hung windows that are on the second floor each align. The one on the left aligns with the double window on the first floor. The one on the right aligns with the double door on the first floor. So I tried to set up some alignments between the upper and lower floors that way. Yes, I can see the panel in between is a little larger.
I think if it could stay consistent with what is happening on the north elevation, where the
I
panel is the same proportion as the window, so that it's 2 windows with the similar proportion panel, I think that may be more successful in maintaining what you're trying to replicate.
Okay, yeah,
from the house.
we'd probably shrink it by about a foot and a half. I think.
Yeah, if it sounds like it wouldn't impact your.
No, it's a bedroom upstairs that.
I think that would be.
Yeah, because I think that's a better reference point within the house itself. So, I mean, the idea of a panel I'm not opposed to. It's the issue of what the size is, because it looks a little odd compared to the other things that are elsewhere on the house. Yeah. Any other questions? Other commissioners? Do we want to see that panel issue again? Do we want to ask Carlos to take a look at it when they submit it? What do you think?
In my opinion, I think it's something that is fairly clear proportion-wise
What it should be.
what we are recommending.
Yeah.
So I think it's something Carlos can address.
Once it comes through, okay. Any final questions? Otherwise, we can entertain a motion on this one. We're all set? Okay. Anybody want to go here?
I move that we issue a certificate of appropriateness for the project at 1047 Forest Avenue, in that the standards for alteration 1 through 10 have been met.
And then if we can add the comment about the panel issue on what's my place? On H. It would be on which elevation? The east elevation.
What was our request?
We were going to look at the size of the panel to be more representative of those elsewhere on the
So the
house.
commission is asking that the
Yeah.
that the paneling on the east elevation, proposed paneling be more in keeping with the existing paneling. Is that fair?
On the house, yeah. Okay. Is there a second? Robert? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Next up is 2215 Orrington. Paul?
I think I signed the wrong thing there.
Yeah, you did. And is Brett your client?
It's great.
Oh, okay. Did you sign in earlier? Oh, okay, perfect. If you guys can sign in.
Hi, I'm Paul Janicki, and I'm here returning with the project at 2215 Orrington, which has already been before the commission a few months ago. And since that time, we've made a few changes that Carlos felt it was prudent to come back before the full commission. So there were two components when we first came, and one was demolition of an addition on the back of the original house, which was granted. And so then the addition to the back of the house was considered, which was approved. So in a nutshell, starting, kind of a big picture is at the time when we first contemplated this design, we were doing a crawl space. Since we got more budget numbers as we went down the road and we're going through working drawings, we realized that we could actually afford to do a basement under the addition. So that's the first reason why these are different, because now there are basement windows. That's the kind of overarching bigger change. The massing, the heights, the widths, plan, everything is identical. The things that have changed is basically windows and windows numbers. On the east elevation, for instance, you see the approved, Carlos, can you pull that? Eliot, thank you. There, you can see on the left side, that's what we had approved a few months ago. In the meantime, after meeting with the kitchen consultant and starting to work with cabinets in the kitchen on the lower right-hand corner there, we determined that 4 windows was too much and we couldn't get what we needed in there, so we ended up reducing it to 3 windows. On the upper left-hand corner, we had a master bath that had 3 full-size double hungs, and we just felt there was a privacy issue there. We decided to sort of truncate that down to 2, which sort of, in my mind, helped the elevation a little bit because it helped fiddle a bit with the symmetry, which always sort of wasn't my favorite thing, because as an Arts and Crafts Prairie house, it's typically not a symmetrical arrangement to begin with, so that made us happy. If you go around to the, let's see, what's the next one on next drawing there, Carlos? What's that? The north elevation, thanks. So the north elevation basically remains unchanged, except because we took a staircase access out on the north side, on the south side, and we replaced it with a simple bulkhead for getting bikes and big things in and out of this new basement. So it sort of changed the rules for us a little bit. That's why we ended up just doing this very low profile bulkhead. And again, the basement window appears because there's a full basement. And then on the south elevation, it's more or less the same. Again, the basement windows are added. And, oh, I'm sorry, you know what? On the east elevation, I meant to mention there were a pair of French doors, and we reduced that to a single French door. And the real reason for doing that was, as we got further and further into detailing how downspouts and collector boxes worked and stuff, we realized, yikes, we just got all these big things coming down, and it just made sense to reduce it to a single opening. That's why that happened. And you can see on the back to the south elevation, we reduced that stair that you see that has a railing going down to the basement. So that's gone. We pulled piers up on the platform just to give it a more finished look and to match the front of the house more. And we have the 2 basement windows. So that's it, I think. Do you have some questions for us?
Any questions, guys? I think this one, it all makes sense.
Oh, good.
There's just a bunch of stuff.
It's just a bunch of stuff.
Are we ready to entertain a motion to approve the changes here, and the standards are alteration 1 through 10. So,
I move that we issue a certificate of appropriateness for 2215 Orrington for the revisions that were previously approved. East elevation comparison, also add basement windows and north elevation, okay. Added basement window and bulkhead, south elevations, applicable standards, alterations 1 through 10.
okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Susie? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
Thanks for your time, guys.
Thanks. Next is 704 Judson. Is Gary not in the room?
No, he's out there. You up? Gary?
Gary, you're on.
Gary, I put the original application.
I saw it. You put them both
Over
in
there?
there.
I did, or just the new?
It's up to you.
I mean, it's up to you, actually. I didn't know if you want to refer to the, this is the original, I can go to the.
Go to the new one. That would be, that'll be the one. If we need to go back to that one.
Okay, so this is the revised application and the original material plus the material you provided today.
What's that? Did you include the new material as well?
At the end, yes.
Oh, thank you.
He just, it will be here, but he just submitted like this afternoon, so. It's just material that clarifies more, I guess.
Yeah. Carlos had sent me a note and asked me to do some additional drawings for the purpose of this meeting. My name is Gary Shoemaker. I'm with Shoemaker Design Build Associates. We are back presenting a revision to a previously approved application at 704 Judson. As you see, the existing house as a prairie style house, this porch we had originally proposed tearing off and reconstructing to the side. This porch doesn't meet code. We had extended it, we had added railings, we had replicated the details of this particular porch. Subsequently, we have begun working with our landscape architect, and the client has asked us to revise this to relocate the front entry. As you see here, this is zoning compliant. It's been through zoning. It meets all the requirements for setback. I don't know if you can read it, but in your packet you'll see that's a permitted encroachment beyond the front yard setback. Carlos, could you give me the next slide, please? This is the previously approved application in which we extended a platform, extended the wing walls, brought the stair down, and screened in the entirety of the existing screen porch. We are reconstructing that porch that was approved under the previous application. We're going to continue that. The revision is to rotate that stair to the front. We are uncovering this existing front door, which is original to the house. We're taking off the storm door and surroundings. We'd like this to be more visible, and as you saw on the site plan a moment ago, more accessible to pedestrians off of the street. Right now, the entry is still a bit hidden off to the side. We are still enclosing half of that screen porch, as you see here, by sliding this wall in, creating a square landing that will have a coach light on it. The barrel vaulted ceiling of the existing porch will remain. Carlos, can you go to the next slide for me, please? These drawings show you the before and after here, and when I say before, this is what was approved. This is what we're permitted as of currently under construction with. So the porch is off to the side. One of the things that we discussed when we were here last time was the railing obstruction in front of this living room window. Currently, the house does not have a railing on that front porch. We're required by code to add one. So this was the side view looking from the south toward the north, as that porch was planned to enter the side porch. Now my battery's dying here. This is the revised front entrance. You see this is the dormer. We've constructed the dormers in place and stuccoed now. This is a projecting balcony off of what was a Jack and Jill bathroom when the house was originally constructed. It's now a master bathroom. This is the new opening where the front door is. The front door is centered on the house, on the flat of the gable and the hip. And again, opening this up to give access both for entry and for visual access to that front door was something that both the landscape architect and the owner had asked us to explore. We do eliminate the wrought iron railings because the wing walls we're proposing extend out just as the existing do. They extend into the front yard, so we have a handrail, but not a picketed guardrail any longer. So it's a simpler, more discreet railing, more in keeping with the period of this house and the arts and crafts detailing of this house. Carlos, the next slide for me. This is from the other side. You see that this porch looks no different than our previous proposal. The rear is unaffected by this change. The only change in the front yard is the extension of these two small wing walls that continue the battered shiplap siding, which is painted from the porch, maintaining original details and replicating craftsmanship of this porch. It should be noted also in our building permit application, we are rebuilding this porch from below. The foundations have failed and the porch is sinking, so stabilizing this and raising it is part of the scope of work anyway. So, but we are not taking any of the cladding off of this porch as it is right now. So, next slide for me. This is the landscaping plan. I think it's important to show you the reasoning behind this. The owners have a more contemporary aesthetic. The landscaping will include large bluestone pavers, which reorient the front walk. Currently, the walk comes off of the sidewalk here and kind of meanders around to a landing and a couple of awkward steps, and then enter the porch from the side. So we will reorient it from the sidewalk, a direct entrance to the front porch. You can see from the planting plan here that we're creating an access to the side of the house, which takes advantage of this existing tree and establishes a larger aesthetic in the front of the house. This rendering shows an existing tree on the side, and the balance we're trying to create in there. If you've gone by this house, you'll see that the evergreen trees that surround this create a pretty rigid symmetry on that site as it is. So our intention is to, again, recenter the house on the projecting bay, the new dormer above, and reveal the front door on the front porch. Carlos, the next slide for me. I think I need better batteries. Again, this is the site plan as we currently have the project permitted. That's the existing walk. There are two uneven steps about right here that lead up to this porch. What precipitated the revision is the inability for us to make that grade without significantly recontouring the front yard, which we would prefer not to do, and I'm sure that Ingrid would prefer us not do that. This is the revised site plan minus the landscaping. So there's the new front walk. There's the side access walk made of stepping stones that curve around the side as well. Next slide for me. These are renderings of the revisions to the porch. This you've already seen. This was approved previously. Unfortunately, the quality of the slide is not fantastic, but you can see that the shiplap paneling that exists on the porch today was extended into these wings. Also becomes the extension of the wings on the new porch. So we dovetail all of that in, miter it and cope it together to create a seamless facade from the south when viewed, and from the front, the fenestration, the texture, and the lines of that existing fabric will continue around the porch. I believe that's the last slide I have. So, according to the agenda tonight, all the standards of alteration 1 through 10 apply to this. Do we need to discuss the standards tonight, or would you like to?
I think we'll get to that. Anything else?
I think that's it. Thank you.
Questions?
Is the shiplap original?
Yes, it is.
I move that we issue a certificate of appropriateness for 704 Judson Avenue for the revisions to the previously approved plans to relocate the existing front porch to be front and center. In that the applicable standards for alteration 1 through 10 are met.
Is there a second? Jamie? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, you're all set.
Thank you.
You're up again. 913 Monroe.
My name is Gary Shoemaker. I'm with Shoemaker Design Associates.
Continue on.
All right.
There's this one.
Does that one have batteries in it now?
This is mine.
It's his personal.
Carlos thought we stole his, but I don't think there was one down here today. Thank you. This project is at 913 Monroe Street. This is a very simple window replacement. We are proposing to replace 18 existing insert windows. This house, our best guess is probably 10 to 12 years ago, had the original windows removed from it in its entirety. They were replaced with weather shield inserts. As I explained to Carlos, the jam liners and jam pockets were not insulated. The sashes were removed, the stops pulled out, and the windows inserted. We are proposing to replace these with Pella Architect Series Reserve windows that are putty glaze simulated. We are asking, as the National Park Service recommends, that we use a Landmark Series window with a clad exterior. So I have marked on here the windows we're replacing. Not all of the windows are being replaced this time. This is a newer casement window that was replaced. It's not failing. The windows on the second floor in the front here have failed. They are covered by storm windows, but that is because the old weather shield windows didn't work because the weight pockets were still full of weights and the jams were not insulated. So we're planning to do this the proper way. We are pulling these windows entirely out, taking out the old weight pockets, the frames, and installing new windows.
Are there any original windows?
There are no original windows in this house. I mentioned that to Carlos. He sent me a copy of the. There are some wood weather shield windows. They are all behind storm panels, but there are no original windows left in this house. On the back of the house, in this addition, where we are not replacing any windows on the first level, these are also weather shield windows, more recent, but they have mullions in them. Mullions are not original, nor are they appropriate for this house, so we are not proposing to put muttons in any of these windows. This dormer, we're not replacing the windows in these. These are Pella windows from, I'm not sure when. They haven't failed. When they do, we'll replace them, but the time hasn't come yet. The windows on the west side, on the side of the house, again, all weather shield inserts that are being replaced. There are 2 casements in the stairwell, which, Carlos, if you could go to the next slide for me, please. You can see the casement window here, which I'm sorry, not a casement, it's a fixed casement. That will replace with a fixed casement from Pella in the same series. There is a closet underneath the stair that has the only single glazed window. It is not original. It looks like a sash panel that was borrowed from somewhere else and installed there. But we'll replace this and the window directly below it, as you'll see in the elevations in a moment. So, the interior casings will remain. The existing jam stop is in there. We're going to cut it down as necessary to get the new window to fit. There are photographs of the weather shield windows. They look fine. They do not work. So there is no original fabric and no value to retaining an insert window. Can I have the next slide, please? These are the elevations of the exterior of the house. If you look, every designation that has a number is a window we're replacing. There are a total of 18 of those. Windows that do not have a designation are part of a more recent renovation, not by our client, but by someone who replaced all these windows. Our best guess is that these windows on the first floor, which were part of a kitchen remodeling, were in fact replacement windows, not inserts. They probably have a few years of life left in them. We would intend at some point to replace them under a larger master plan with the same Pella Reserve Series window, and would return to this commission to ask permission to do that. So these are the two windows. This one is in the stairwell above. This is the one in the coat closet below. So those two are the fixed windows that we'll be replacing. Carlos, the next slide, please. Excuse me. These large fixed glass windows are direct set insulated glass windows. They were direct set, single pane originally, would be our best guess. They have also been replaced. They were likely replaced when the inserts were put in. We are not changing those. The glazing beads on these fixed units differ slightly. From a distance, they might as well be putty glazed. They have a slight OG, but our preference is to stick with a putty glazed reserve window that's more historically accurate. The other thing we're doing, I know that the statement of significance mentions the shutters on the front of the house. They're not original. They're fiberglass. They're falling apart. It's our intention to remove those and not replace them. They don't belong. They're disproportionate, and the owner doesn't like them, so we're asking to take those away from the house.
You say they were this close?
What's that? The shutters.
The shutters.
Yes. Let's see. That's as I said, the window on the front, we're keeping the fixed units. The existing front door is going to be taken down, stripped, resealed, the glass replaced in it, all the hardware, brass seals and stops replaced. But it's existing to remain. We'll service it, but it'll go back in. The next slide, please. These are the drawings Carlos has asked me to generate, showing you the differences. This is obviously a difference between an insert window and a new window. The weather shield insert window does not match the frame profiles of the Landmark Series Pella Reserve window. The Pella Reserve window is a window approved by the National Park Service for use in such things. The comparison with that in this application, I think, is incorrect. I would argue that we shouldn't be trying to match or replicate a weather shield window. Can you give me the next slide? Is that the last one, Carlos? I wonder if I sent you any more here. So this is the window schedule showing the sizes, the locations of all the windows. I think the subsequent pages are all the cut sheets and data information required for a window submittal, showing that these windows are insulated and UV rated, and confirming that they're Pella Reserve Series putty glazed windows. The other thing that Carlos had asked me to prepare for today is a drawing showing you the difference between the existing insert window, the amount of glass shown, relative to the proposed new window, which again is a Landmark Series approved for preservation window. The windows are taller. The glass area is, where do we go? The glass area vertically is slightly taller. The glass area in width is about 2 inches wider. Again, because when you put these windows in, when you put an insert in, you keep the frame. When you take an insert out and you take the frame out, you get a larger window. The other difference between the existing windows, which again is a weather shield insert window, the stiles and rails are disproportionate. The check rail and the bottom rail are not tall enough. They don't match what would have been historic fabric for this particular house. So we would kindly ask this commission to approve a Landmark Series window for the replacement plan on this house. And I think is that all you asked me to address there?
Yes, if you don't mind, can you also email me later the PDF?
Thanks, Gary. Any questions? No? Are we ready to entertain a motion on this one?
I move to issue a certificate of appropriateness for 913 Monroe Street to replace 18 windows, non-original windows, with the new Pella Architect Reserve Series. Applicable standards include alteration 1 through 10.
Second. Robert? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstentions? Okay. All right, thanks, Gary.
Thank you.
Yes. Next is 2125 Sherman, if I can ask you to step up and sign in if you haven't already done so.
I just had some photos of the house. That's the front of the house. And he provided this photo of the rear.
And then if I can ask you to introduce yourselves, and then you can go ahead and describe.
My name is Noreen Edwards, and this is my husband, Mark Metz, and we live at 2125 Sherman. And we are just,
Did you have a chance to sign up?
we did.
Okay.
I did for both of us. And we just want to replace our little falling down garage. Isn't it cute?
Yeah. When the insurance company, we changed insurance companies, and they said, we won't insure your garage. Told me it was time to get it.
Well, the roof is a problem. And,
Okay.
yeah, so.
You want to describe what you plan to do?
So currently it's 20 by 20 and my truck won't fit in the garage. So we're going to build a 24 by 27 garage. So that's 7 feet wider, 4 feet deeper. We have a sidewalk that currently goes to the south side of the garage, and we're going to leave the sidewalk where it is, and so the new door would be on the yard side of the garage. Currently, the passage door is on the side, so we would put the door right where the sidewalk is, and then 2 windows as they currently are. And that's about it.
Are you talking about the rear elevation when you're talking about the sidewalk?
Say again?
Are you talking about the real elevation when you're talking about the sidewalk?
No, from our,
So would that be corresponding to this elevation?
That's the west.
Yes.
Yeah, west elevation there where the passage door is.
so that's why, anyway, I guess I didn't need to tell you about the sidewalk, but, so we're gonna have the door on this side as opposed to the side where it currently is. So for better access, because we'll have 3 feet south of the garage, so this will be better access and I think nicely balanced with the 2 windows, because we currently have the 2 windows there.
Is the front elevation facing the alley?
No, rear elevation is facing our yard.
Okay, but the front elevation. The one that's drawing.
Yeah, with the garage door, yes,
Okay, I
that's.
just want to make sure that I'm not.
Well, of course, yeah. Garage door is on the alley.
Okay. Construction drawing, the roof plan, and this zoning approval.
Yeah. The one thing that I did want to call attention to in the zoning approval that's noted in there, you guys probably saw it, but it says that the eaves shall not be larger than the house eaves.
Of course. So we're spending a little extra money. Normally, a lot of the new garages only have like 6-inch eaves, but I really kind of hate that look, and so we're going to go with the 12-inch, right? 12-inch eaves.
Yeah. And I think when we're talking about a motion with that one, we should include that with our motion, so.
Can you speak up of the materials you're proposing, please?
Yes.
So there would be vinyl siding, vinyl windows, asphalt shingle roof.
Okay. Any questions from the commissioners? Okay. With that, do we want to entertain a motion to approve the new garage? And for this, the standards for construction and demolition apply, and we also need to include the language from the zoning certificate about the eaves. So, someone want to make a motion here?
I move that we issue a certificate of appropriateness for 2125 Sherman Avenue for the demolition and of the existing detached garage and construction of the new detached. In that constructions standards 1 through 5, 7, 8, 10 through 14, and 16, along with the standards for demolition 1 through 6 apply and have been met. Regarding zoning, we would like to note that, just trying to get that language here.
Yeah, it's eaves shall not be larger than the house eaves.
The zoning note is that the eaves for the garage shall not be larger than the house eaves.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Robert, all in favor signify by saying aye. Any
Aye.
opposed? Nay? No. No nays? No abstentions? Okay.
Thank you.
Very much.
Thank you.
Next is 1426 Forest Avenue. And if I could ask you, I think you folks may have signed in on the other form, if I could ask you to sign in on the presenter forms. And then if you can introduce yourselves and tell us about your project.
Carlos had asked that we put together a rendering of the garage aspect of it as well. So it's two.
While he hands that out, I'm Alex Branshaw, like my wife and I, Leslie, own the home.
Oh, okay, very nice to meet
Hand
you.
it off to you. All right, thank you.
All right. My name is Brent Whittler with Whittler Architectural. I'm the architect on the project, and thank you for the opportunity to present this project to you. So our project is for the home at 1426 Forest. It's built in 1892 as part of the Lakeshore Historic District. For us on this project, our objectives are twofold. Number one is to preserve the historical characteristics of the exterior of the home, and also to all alterations of the exterior are to be consistent with the home as it stands, and new additions are to blend into the existing context of the home as well. And then on the front page we have the existing photos of the home. As you can see, it's again simple in design, single or a lap siding, wood siding with the front porch on it, and then there has been a few additions over the years on the home. From what we can tell from the original 1892 design, the front porch was recessed into it. As you can see, there's a 45-degree angle on the southeast corner, and then on the interior in the family room, there is a window you will see that's actually been covered up. So it looks like the front porch at one time was recessed in about 4 feet to sort of match the symmetry of that 45-degree angle, but at some time during the process of the age of the home, that has been built out to the front and a front porch added. As you see on the back of the home, there was an addition done, we're saying about 30 to 40 years ago, a single-story addition on the rear that we are going to retain, but add a second-story master suite above that. Carlos, next slide, please. For the front of the home, again, most of the windows on the home have been replaced. There are some original windows on the second floor. Those windows are mostly in disrepair. They are, again, a wood window, a 120-year-old window. Sash is falling out and quite a bit of rot. They've been sealed shut in most cases for the homeowner can attest safety of the applicants. The sashes are falling out. All the windows on the first floor have been replaced, again, in that 30 to 40-year range window, a grill between glass replacement window. Our intention is to replace all of the windows of the home with the exception of the windows in the dormer on the attic level. They have a diamond pattern, the one on the front rendering on the left. On the one on the right is more of a cross, almost more of a prairie style. And then on the dormer on the north side, again, we have an original sort of cross prairie style grill pattern. While those are in disrepair, they are unique to this house, so our goal is to retain those and repair them. Also on the north there in the foyer, there is a 3-panel window that is in good shape, and we're going to retain that one as well. All the windows are going to be replaced with a Appellate Reserve line window that again meets the National Historic Preservation. Also on the front porch, there is a canopy and columns, and Carlos, could you flip back one page, please? As you can see in that photo and further along, you'll see that while that is not original to the home, as far as we can tell, back in the 50s, we have a photo showing it is there, but again, it is somewhat disproportionate to the rest of the home, and in the style of the house, while it is a very simple facade, every detail counts. Every bit of proportion of this front porch is really going to make a difference. So if you go to the next slide, our proposal is to beef that up and to make it more historically accurate in proportion and also in detail. And then on the back of the home, we are proposing a 2nd-story addition over the 1-story addition. That mimics the roof lines and really just carries that single-story roof up to the 2nd floor, adding a mudroom and a back porch onto the rear elevation, and then continuing the roof line of the dining room bump out that's on the south of it to wrap that around and pick up the railing detail that's existing to the home now and carry it over the new front porch, or I'm sorry, the new rear porch. Next slide, please. We included a series of photos from the neighborhood. Again, all homes unique in their own character, and ours will continue to, again, carry that tradition throughout. Next slide, please. In this, you can see how we are just showing the elevation. Not much is changing on the street side elevation, with the exception of the detailed front porch. We are adding a new wrought iron railing. We do want to clad the front concrete steps that are there now, and we are looking to replace all of the windows with the exception of the attic windows, which we will repair. Next slide, please. This is the existing, what would be north elevation. And one item you can see on just above, sort of between the 1st and 2nd floor, there's sort of it's really an end cut wood grain pattern that's existing. That, as far back as we can find, is the only part of the house where this exists. And it's not a scallop, it's really a 6x6 that's been end cut and then added in this area. It's inconsistent with the rest of the home, and our proposal is to eliminate that detail from the house, as it doesn't have any reference points to the remainder of the house. Next slide, please. Here we can see how we are adding an addition onto the 2nd level, and then replacing the windows in a slightly new configuration. The dormer on the attic level, we are putting new windows in of the larger of the dormers. The windows are a little bit larger than what's there now to meet the light and vent requirements for that attic space. And then the smaller dormer to the left, we will rehab that window, as well as the 1st floor window on the left. That 3-panel will be kept as it is in good condition. Next slide. And here's the rear elevation. We are removing the masonry wood-burning fireplace from the addition from about 30 to 40 years ago, just so they have a great backyard, want to be able to see it. So our goal is to get a series of double-hung windows across the 1st floor out to the backyard, and then do a direct vent fireplace in that family room that will vent out to the north. And then for the master suite, it's going to be added above. It's really just taking that 1st-story roof line and taking it to the 2nd level. Over the back porch, again, you can see the railing configuration that's going in the next slide. Carlos, if we could flip to the next one. You can see there is this small portion of railing over the second floor, or over the first floor, over the existing, what is study now. That's going to be our dining room, and that will continue over the rear porch, if you would go to the next slide. All right, next slide, please. In here are the floor plans. This is the existing footprint. If you could go to the next one. And there is our addition. The only thing footprint-wise we are adding is underneath the mudroom, which would be at the lower left-hand side in the area of the rear porch. Next slide. And in this one showing the existing footprint, and on the next slide you'll see the footprint that we're adding is the rear porch and also the mudroom. Next slide, please. Existing second floor as it sits now. And if we click to the next one, you can see where we are reconfiguring quite a bit of the second floor. The staircase had been closed in over the years to create a larger bedroom. We are opening that back up to its original configuration, or similar to its original configuration, adding a few bathrooms and a master over the existing one-story addition in the rear of the home. Next slide. Existing attic. And that's really just adding attic space to the left of that page, and a bathroom up there for the future. Roof line, and the next one is just the addition of the second floor. All right, and this is the garage. The existing garage is a 20 by 20, a 400 square foot garage. We're proposing a 2.5 car garage that will be 672 square feet. So it's going to be a 27 by, I think it's a 27, let me see here. .24 by 26. I'm sorry, 24 by 28 garage. So just get a larger garage. The garage is in disrepair right now. Slab's cracking, and we are going to try to mimic the aesthetic of it with copper gutters, same detailing, and windows as well. But just a slightly larger garage to house more current vehicles. And then next slide, please. Again, elevations of the garage, our site plan, and then if you go one more, you will see that it's virtually in the same location, just going to the south an additional 8 feet. Next slide. There's our plat of survey, and we can go to the next one as well. And for the front porch, the image that we show is how it sits right now. As you can see, it does have lack of detail to it. And like we said, our goal is to keep the simplicity of the front elevation of the home. And really, with that being said, the pieces that are there need to have detail, need to be proportionally correct. So we used a reference point from a text that we reference regularly. It's called Get Your Home Right. It shows historic proportions of homes. And again, I think what they are showing in that detail is very similar to what we're proposing that we do for the new front porch. We are keeping the columns in place. We are going to put new column covers on them, as those are very, very simple and lack detail and lack scale. And then do a new roof, asphalt shingles to match what's there, a new barrel vault, and again, just increase the overall mass of that piece so it blends into the front facade and gives it a little bit more character, I should say. Next slide, please. With our windows, again, the original windows, they are an OG profile on the exterior and interior. So with a Pella reserve line, again, this one showing the putty glaze, but on the inside it will show that it has the OG profile as well. So we are looking to replicate the OG profile. And then also, and we'll be doing it in white, but they have a 1x4 trim. And then what we're proposing is doing the clad trim that snaps into this window frame, and to replicate the sill profile, they have a profile that we'll be adding onto the to match the sill of what's existing. Yeah, I believe we can show that in the next slide. There we go, and there's a few of the profiles for the window as well. And thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Questions?
The end-cut wood siding, the band that's shown on the door, The south elevation appears to have abandonment as well. Is that
What-
just a graphic issue or?
It was, let's see if we can go to that one, on the rendering or the elevation?
The elevation.
Oh, the existing south. The existing south?
Is that coming out as well then? on the
Yes, it is. I'm sorry, yes, there is that one small section of it in that location as well, yes. Thank you for clarifying that.
I just had a quick question, and maybe I missed it
Mhm.
when you were presenting some of the interior issues, but it seems like the proposed south elevation is much more animated than the proposed north elevation.
Mhm.
And I was wondering, particularly if you look at the new addition, there's kind of a lot of blank wall space
Mhm.
there. And I wanted to understand what the rationale was there.
It really comes, as far as the blank wall space, for the master bedroom, we really wanted to emphasize we needed a wall for a bed. And that was the wall we came up with because we wanted to really get some natural light going out to the rear yard. So we did put our windows there, and also to the area overlooking over the porch roof. We wanted to get some natural light in those southern exposures as well. So that's really why we have that blank wall up there, is just to give us a furniture wall. And that's the main purpose of that.
It's also, I've looked at it, and it's almost consistent with the current design. If you look at each side of the house in person, which is like, it is strange, but that's the original.
Other,
Go ahead,
sorry.
Susie.
I have a question about the mutton pattern. Obviously, you're doing 6/1 for the front facade, and then when you go to the side facades, you have muttons that are on the top and bottom. How did you come to decide where you were using those?
So in the bedrooms upstairs, we went with the casement window just to meet egress requirements for those. So we went with the full mutton pattern over the entire window.
Are all of those egress?
All of those bedroom windows would be egress, correct?
So if I look at the proposed north elevation, you have one that looks like you're replacing in the upper left that used to be a 1/1 that you're coming back and leaving the bottom without muttons, but then the rest of them obviously have been filled with muttons. So I think there's a little bit of a like an issue with where you put them. Your front facade is very clear and very nicely there's a rhythm to it, and then you get to the rear facades and it kind of goes a little bit from changing. So one thing I would say is maybe that can get a little bit clearer.
Yeah, well, I would tend to agree with it, because if you look in the west elevation, it's a combination of those again. And I think that's one of the really nice aspects of the house is the 6/1s and having that. I think that's an element that's worth perhaps considering taking through the house. I understand with the egress ones, that would be fine, but I had the same question about that.
And then that would bring me to another question. You have the profiles nicely drawn for the original windows, and you had mentioned that obviously they're in disrepair. What was the grid for those usually, and where were those?
So in the front elevation, there are the original windows on the second floor.
Okay.
So those are the 6/1s.
And are there any on the second floors on the other elevations, or is it just on the front?
There are some on the north elevation existing. There is a 1/1 that was a replacement window, a 30-40 replacement. North elevation, those were all replaced windows. All of the originals, on the back of the house, existing west elevation, we do have a 8/8 that's original. That, as far as we can tell, is original.
Okay.
We did have our window manufacturer come out and even look at the dormer windows on the attic level, because there is an inconsistency between that diamond pattern and the other pattern. And from what they can tell, they're as he said, they're all 100-plus-year-old windows. So there are some inconsistencies in there, but And we were just kind of playing that off to the quirk of the house as it was built, and keeping that quirk continued in the new configuration.
And then I just had one more question. In your window profiles, you show the 1x4 painted wood trim. Is there a reason why you are removing that and coming back with the exterior aluminum panning?
Most of the trim is in disrepair. There is quite a bit of rot in there, especially at the sill where the trim meets the sill. So we were wanting to actually peel that off and then do a proper window installation in these and flash these properly versus trying to go from the inside and replace them. And thought, well, while we were there, let's do this properly.
Other questions? Did you folks want to see the windows? Do you want to take a look at this one again, or where do we want to go here?
I mean, I would just, and I know that it's frustrating, but I think just for clarity's sake, I would like to see them again, but it could also be something that maybe Carlos can see. It's up to you.
Yeah, we'd be happy to put together a new aesthetic and send it over versus, I mean, we'll obviously come back again, but if we can simplify the process, we are not against that.
Yeah, Carlos, do you have a sense of what we're looking at here?
I think that when you do your motion, you should point what you're looking for so that I can compare that.
So that it's clear,
Right.
clarified in the motion. Otherwise, if you think it's too much, it may be easier if they come back in November.
We can do elevation by elevation.
Okay.
And so that will be clear.
Does that work, Susie?
Now you're pushing it up.
I mean, it's recorded, all the comments. And
He can go back and look at it too, because it is being recorded.
Well, the east is obviously not an issue.
Yeah.
I think for the benefit of all of us, even if you come back, he needs to know exactly what you need.
Yeah, he does as well. Yeah, yeah.
I guess that would be my clarification, is going to, even on a casement, going kind of to the aesthetic of a 6/1, is that?
I think it looks like on the south elevation you have a lot of casements.
Correct. Right,
Because
that's
of
loaded with the bedrooms.
Upper deck but you do have those ones that are on the first floor in the addition that are over the ones. So I would maybe, a clarification would be on the front facade it's very clear, on the side facades I would pick one or the other, so that you don't just have one or two windows that are, over one, and then
Understood.
you may just want to do the same proportion of obviously the grid. So I think on the proposed west elevation, that's most notably, expressed with, you have the line of ones that are over one. Now I would assume that that's a little bit of a visual, because you didn't want to have the muttons in your view. So I guess, do any of my fellow commissioners have any comments on that?
No. Why don't you go ahead and make a motion?
So do it by elevation?
Yeah, what you can do is the standards that apply are alteration, construction, and demolition, and I would just add that, you can talk about the addition and whatever it is generically, but address those specifics of those facades. So, and the demolition
is the garage,
correct.
So do you need separate motions for that, or can it be under one?
You can do in one motion, all the alterations, all the demolition only.
I will do my best.
Yeah.
So
We'll correct you.
I move to issue a certificate of appropriateness for 1426 Forest Avenue for the construction of a second-story addition at the rear of the house and an open porch on the first floor. The exterior alterations include the repair, replacement, and addition of the windows on the east, northwest, and south elevations. We ask that on those elevations, the mutton grids are revised to show a more consistent appearance. Namely, on the north elevation, the second floor window perhaps has a similar pattern to the remaining proposed windows. Same goes for the proposed west elevation at the first floor, and then on the proposed south elevation on the first floor at the new addition.
Can I add one thing to it, as we're just looking at the north elevation? I think we do have some examples of the originals, that bank of 3 on the first floor. Those are original windows that
Ones
we are
directly
retaining,
below the
that
one
were the
with the-
casements.
Okay,
And-
so it is a consistent mud grid across.
Mhm.
So I think that makes sense that that's what we should maybe have consistent across all the rear elevations, where you have the muttons over muttons or continual muttons through the casements.
Mhm.
If we're in agreement, right?
That's what we have right now.
You're saying, what about the one window on the north elevation above the triple window with nothing in the lower sash?
And that was a double hung, so we could change that to a
Is that getting
casement.
proposed to be replaced?
That was a replacement window, correct,
So
yes.
perhaps that can get changed to be replaced at 12 over 12,
Mhm.
if that's possible.
Yes.
Is my motion ready?
Yes.
And just to,
You're kidding.
No, start over, because we really need clarity on it.
Okay.
and
Sorry, but
and just to clarify, is again, at least the thought process was behind it, considering like front elevation, since we had all the double hungs in that area, and those windows being towards the front of the house to try to keep visual consistency from that front view. That's why I did go with the double hung there instead of a casement. Well, then kept the casements towards the rear of the property to try to, keep consistency in view. So that was the thought process behind that. But I mean, I completely understand what you're saying with
You want
the,
me to just approve it as a...
yes. Oh, is that not a question?
I'm not
I think that if there's a couple of areas that you think Carlos should review when it comes in, that's fine. If you're satisfied with what it is, I'm fine. I wouldn't mind seeing a couple of those changed, but.
So just so that I can be clear, on the
Mhm.
proposed south elevation, and Carlos, if you can bring these up, let's go through them real quick so that I can do this as quickly as possible and we can all move on. Right, so on the proposed north elevation, I understand that you're saying that that double hung is supposedly a reference to the front elevation wrapping
Mhm.
around.
Mhm.
I think since it is a solo window double hung, in my opinion, I think it should probably reflect the mutton grid on the top, the upper sash and the lower sash. If anyone else has any other opinions? No? If you are willing to make that change?
Mhm.
If doesn't, okay. So that will be one. On the proposed west elevation, Diane, do you have an issue with those 5 windows being open on the bottom, or?
I would like to see.
With the
With-
mutton grid, so those would be the 9 over 9,
Right.
okay? On the west elevation.
We will respect what you're saying, the point of the entire transaction on the west side there, in getting rid of the fireplace and all the brick there, is to have as unimpeded view of the backyard as possible. Again, we'll respect the mutton grid if you want, but I think part of the reason that they're like that is for that goal.
This? That one I'm okay with.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it remains the same, so?
So west will remain as is, so right now it's just the one window on the north, and then the proposed south, I understand that you were saying that the windows that come around the corner. Now, on the front facade, those windows that come around the corner, are they in the same plane as the whole south elevation?
Say that one more time.
Are the 3 windows that are on the right side,
Yeah.
are they in the same?
proposed south elevation, are they in the same plane?
No, all of those are, the 2 windows on the left are further back than the 2 windows in the middle, which are further back than the window up.
So the windows on the right, do they stand proud of all the rest of the windows?
Yes, this is the most forward, the house steps back and then steps back again. So
Okay.
those are all on individual planes.
Do we care about the 2 that are stepped way back on the deck? I mean, they'll match the ones on the left.
Yeah, they're fine. Okay.
Okay, so we're just gonna change the north.
Right.
All right.
And the north, is the thought to change that to, or the request to change to a casement window, or just go 12 over 12 on a double hung?
12 over 12 on a double hung, if that's acceptable.
All right, that simplifies
Yes.
things.
Okay, so, let's try this again here. I move to issue a certificate of appropriateness for 1426 Forest Avenue. for the construction of a second-story addition over an existing one-story addition at the rear house and an open porch on the first floor. Exterior alterations include repair, replacement, and addition of the windows on the east, north, west, and south elevations, with the window on the north elevation second floor to become a 12/12 double-hung window. Repair and replacement of the wood siding on all elevations, and replace roof and cornice, barrel vault, and ceiling at the front porch. And the new wrought iron railings and cladding over the concrete steps. And it also includes the demolition of the existing detached garage and construction of a new two-car detached wood frame garage. Applicable standards include alteration 1 through 10, construction 1 through 5, 7, 8, 10 through 14, and 15, and demolition 1 through 6.
Is there a second? Jamie? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, thank you.
Great, thank you, everyone, really appreciate it.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Good luck with that. There was one person, gentleman, Randall Smith.
Yes.
Oh, and
I'd
you
like to
wanted
speak to this.
To this?
Next one.
To the next one, that's what I thought, assumed, thank you.
Have the flash drive?
I need to plug my, okay.
We can plug it right here.
And Carlos, you have the presentation?
You know, I tried to download it, but I was busy doing stuff on the right.
You were the pusher. Delegate, like just. And just go references. Yeah. You don't have to issue it. Good enough.
Sorry, if you want to introduce yourself.
Sure.
And Nate, are you speaking as well?
Yes.
Or, okay, you can introduce yourself when you get up.
So whenever you're ready, you can
Yeah.
go to the next slide. Okay?
Yeah. Okay, so my name is William James. I am a member of Dryden Partners LLC, owner of the property and developer of this property and two others on Dryden Place. And so I will be leading the presentation, and Nate will be assisting at various points. So this is the outline of what I want to present. Starting with design direction, the architectural plan, site plan, landscape plan, building materials, the standards, and a summary. So Carlos, you can go to the next slide. So the design direction for this new house is based on buyer feedback I've gotten on my two prior houses. The one at the corner of Asbury and Dempster, and the one directly to the east, which is known as 1244 Dryden Place. So the lots are a little bit, frankly, awkward in their size. When you put a decent sized house on them, there's not a lot of yard left over. There was a lot of pushback from prospective buyers on that point. There's no yard. The area between the house and Dempster Street, people don't see that as a viable yard. They which leads to the next point. Dempster Street is very much a negative, and the design for this house is really intended to mitigate that negative. And I got so many comments that people preferred a contemporary design to the house rather than a traditional design. So those are really the 3 points of design direction. And so as you can see with this drawing, which is the landscape plan, the easternmost lot, which is the 1222 address, is used for the house, and the lot to the west, which is 1232, is used for the yard area. And so this addresses or responds to the no yard issue. And on the next slide, Carlos, the design of the house, the floor plan, is such that it works with the landscape plan and the open space to the west, the yard area to the west, with a patio adjoining the west wall of the house, to create a very distinctive sense of place through a sculptural element that I call a water wall. And you can see examples of the kind of thing I'm thinking about. So it would be a vertical fountain along a stone-faced wall that would, as I said, create a sense of place. It would help to, frankly, drown out some of the noise of traffic on Dempster Street, and provide a visual screen of that traffic, so that in this outdoor space next to the house, there is created a very distinctive sense of place and protection from the Dempster Street impacts. Next slide. So in terms of the preference for contemporary design, all my 22 houses I've built in Evanston in the past were traditional houses. You can see the 3 of them across the bottom there. But I really believe that buyers today prefer contemporary. I think we live in a techno-centric kind of society right now. Technology is celebrated. It permeates all of our lifestyles, the way we socialize, the way we consume entertainment. And I think people want to see it in architecture in the places they live, both in terms of the form and the materials that are used. So I would like to pursue a contemporary design, and really the latest form of contemporary design, postmodern, is what I would call it, where different planes of the building are clad in different types of materials, and it creates a very kind of geometric kind of style. So the architectural plans we see here, first floor and second floor. Given that the western lot is devoted to yard area, and I want to make a strong emphasis on this facade of the building and this orientation of the building. The front door is actually along the west wall towards the north side of the building. There are 2 other points of egress along that west wall, one for the dining room and one for the kitchen, so that there will be opportunities for actually outdoor cooking, outdoor eating, and actually outdoor living room along that patio along the west. The garage faces north, and there is a small driveway, not enough to park cars, but enough to facilitate movement in and out of the garage. The second floor has 4 bedrooms, 3 baths, and it has an outdoor roof terrace for the master bath facing north, which you can see in the upper right-hand corner. And on the next slide, we see the basement level. So the basement really would orient to the south, and there would be windows facing south, and actually a retaining wall along that south elevation, so that windows can actually go below ground level, and you're not looking at a window well, you're actually looking at a little bit of open space and a nicer view out that window. The elevations, carry forward on the architectural theme of different materials used on different planes. And one thing I like about this contemporary style is that it is not completely stark, that it has some richness in the materials, it has some softness, some inviting aspects to it. So it's a combination of wood, natural stone, fiberboard panels, and aluminum for overhangs and soffits, and obviously the window surrounds would be clad in aluminum as well. So this is the west elevation, and the entrance would be toward the left-hand side of the ground floor there. The next slide shows the south elevation facing Dempster Street. And again, we see a mix of materials here. The fiberboard, which would be the large light gray panels. The center would be a projecting 2-foot bay, and that would be clad in aluminum, followed by wood to the left and stone in that left portion there. The next slide shows the north elevation. This is where this faces Dryden Place and the Dryden Mansion. So you see here the entrance to the garage and the various materials on different planes of the building as well. The last elevation would be the east, and again we see the different materials on different planes of the building. Next we see 3 3D visualizations. The upper left is the west elevation looking from northwest to southeast. To the right of that is an aerial visualization looking from the south, and the bottom visualization is looking along Dempster Street to the northeast. In terms of the site and the landscape plan, so we see the site plan again in the middle drawing. There will be a significant effort to screen Dempster, as the other houses along this block of Dempster Street do. There'll be a significant grassy lawn area along the western side of the property. There would be a significant outdoor patio adjacent to the building on the west side. And again, Dryden Place, which is a private street, is to the north, and it is actually part of the lot area. Existing vegetation is to the north of Dryden Place. And on the right-hand side, we can see a blow-up of the connection between the house and the yard area with the outdoor patio, the water wall at the south end of that patio that would be richly landscaped, and you can see an example of a water wall on the left-hand side of the screen with landscaping in front and behind it. So building materials, as represented on the elevations, there would be a mix of materials, a combination of natural materials such as wood and stone, and higher tech materials, fiberboard and metal panels. And so we see examples of these, and I actually have products with me that I can show you. On the wood, I would like the wood to be planks, not large-scale panels, so that it frankly looks more like actual natural wood rather than manufactured product. So it would be the look of the image on the left-hand side versus the right-hand side. We use natural stone. I'm planning on doing a dry set stone, which I think is frankly a little more modern look, and actually I think accents the shape of the individual stones more than a mortared look. Metal panels, I mean, ours will be darker, not lighter, but you get the character of the panels from that image. And then The fiberboard panels, each material will be of a different size, shape, and orientation to create a richness of texture in the facades. So the wood would be kind of the finest texture, and the aluminum panels, the metal panels would be the kind of the biggest, largest dimension and kind of the coarsest texture. They would be joints accented in all of the panels so that it really accentuates the form of the materials. So that is, I think, how we are going to carry out the design concept through the use of materials. And so I have actually, in the materials that you have, addressed each of the standards individually. I'm not sure, Carlos, if I should go through each of them individually.
I don't think
Okay.
that's necessary. We've all reviewed the packets and
Okay.
whatever, and we'll certainly ask questions that address all of those.
Okay.
So, Nate, did you want to, if you can introduce yourself and say what you were going to do here?
So I'm Nate Kipnis, architect here in Evanston, architect on this project, and I have a 3D model and a little clarification on the site plan that might be helpful.
Okay.
So,
I should mention one thing with respect to the two lots. So there is, I found this out actually after I was working with a set of buyers on the previous plan. There is a utility easement that runs along that common lot line that provides utilities to the mansion. And so it would be very difficult to position the house in a way that crosses that easement. So the house needs to be kind of self-contained on that one lot, and the other lot would be used for yard area.
So let me just orient everything. So this is the view from Dempster, and these are, on the left are the adjacent homes that are existing. There is a line going through in space that's connecting the height of that side, and then the building to the east is tagged, the height is tagged in the building that way. And I'll just spin around the building so you can see this, the various materials. So that's the view from Dempster, and then this is the garage with the deck that was referred to. It's right up there. And that's the entry. This is that parking lot that Bill referred to.
Well, it's two, a parking pad,
Parking
two
pad.
parking spaces.
Yeah, and that's the garage going into the unit. This is the water wall out here. And you can see the different materials as we go around. So the clarification I want to give on the site plan is you can see the actual site outline here. That's the two different sites. And the red right here is the setback line. So it's because this is the front, so we're 30 feet back. We've got a 5-foot setback on the west lot, 5-foot setback on the east section. The building itself, though, however, is 5 feet from the split. So this building can stand all by itself when the lots, if it was ever to be split, it's not the intention, but.
No, actually, I believe that zoning made it clear that if this moves forward, that they couldn't be split, and that is the intention, that they not be split.
Are you going to collect the pins?
I don't want to file a consolidation, a plat consolidation, if I don't have to. I'm happy to do whatever the city wants me to do to unify the two properties.
Okay.
And I think actually, if it were to be split, there would be some nonconformities created with respect to coverage and other things, so.
Okay.
I actually think we're on target with pretty much everything. The one thing that we do need to figure out is the impervious surface, only because Dryden Road is semi-impermeable, is.
Unit pavers.
Yeah, and so I believe that's like a 20%.
Well, I believe in the zoning analysis, everything met code, including impervious. I think we're not anywhere close to the impervious limit for this property.
We did a calculation as if that road was solid and we were just a hair over. So if that's the case, we're way under.
We're way under.
Okay. So are you guys done? Okay. Mr. Smith, I have a copy of the statement or the note that you sent to Carlos. I think it's dated today.
This afternoon.
Yeah, so if you want to, if I can, ask you to step down if you want to come and present your point of view here. If you wanted to comment on the project.
Thank you. I know it's getting kind of late. My name's Randy Smith. My wife and I own the property at 1211 or 1212. It used to be 1211 Dempster. It's now 1212 Dryden Place, which is the house to the east of this proposal. We became aware of the plans for this property late last week when we got the postcard about this meeting. Because and I spoke with Carlos yesterday, who explained to me that the zoning staff had already looked at this and had not considered it a variance and considered it compliant with respect to the various elements. But as I looked at it, I had some concerns. I have not had a chance to talk to an attorney except for about 10 minutes today. And I have talked to a couple of the other residents, 4 in total, in the subdivision, and they have the same set of concerns that I put into a letter that was submitted to Carlos today for him to share. I think a lot of what's in there is not necessarily in the purview of this commission. So I wasn't really planning on formally presenting all of that, but I guess I wanted to address a couple of things, and some of the conversation here bears on that. The zoning staff has judged the current proposal as compliant with respect to the building lot coverage and the impervious surface coverage ratios by considering both lots together. Yet the proposal, the application makes very clear these are two separate lots. They're two separate lots in the definition of parcels, 2 pins. They're also designed or described in the application as 2 zoning lots, which would suggest that even from a zoning perspective, they're separate entities. The construction that's proposed here, as you'll see, was described, is in the house is entirely on the lot next to us, and maintains the 5-foot setbacks on both sides because it's all contained within that one. If it were confined to really look at just the 1212 or 1222 Dryden Place, which is what the proposal is described as, it would not meet the zoning requirements. It would be over the 30%. It would be 32%, And it would be based on the numbers that you provided.
Yeah. From a zoning, that's
a whole different issue.
That's a different can of worms for us, because that's
Fine.
way outside of
But
our purview.
let me
Yeah.
just make the point, whether we argue about exactly where it is with the size of the house. The house is 15% bigger than any other house in the subdivision. I think it's rather revealing that the first three comparative examples in the proposal are a synagogue across the street, across Dempster, the Unitarian Church, which is not even in the subdivision, and the Dryden Mansion. It is much bigger than any of the other houses that are single-family residents in the subdivision on a similar size lot. So I think that may be something that is relevant to you as you look at how it fits in to the neighborhood. I am concerned, and part of the letter was, and this again is a zoning commission element, is if the lots are not combined, it raises there's nothing permanent on the west lot. And a future owner somewhere down the road could be led to believe, or could come to his own conclusion, that that 7,200 square foot separate lot described as 1232 Dryden or 12, I think that's the number now, could be buildable. When the city might say no, somebody might buy under a different perspective. So we've made some requests there. We have some other concerns about the nature of Dryden Place, the fact that it's paver brick and is certainly going to be disrupted by the construction, and who's responsible for fixing that is an issue. But I did want to mention the size issue and the fact that as it relates to being right next to us, I mean, I understand the notion of the overall gestalt of the space, but as it relates to us, it's putting a very large home, bigger than ours, on us right next to us.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, questions about the design? Would Carlos?
Well, when I had the opportunity to talk to Mr. Smain, and then I wanted to make sure that we have a lot of information about the zoning. I asked Melissa Clark, who is a zoning planner, to look at the planner survey that Mr. James sent me the email with the location of the parking area, because that was a question that we didn't know at the time, at least I didn't know. So she made the calculations very quickly, so this is just for you to know, according to her calculations, that if you were to separate the two lots as they are with the construction of the new house, that according to her calculations, and needs to be verified, because we would like to do that, it would be 31% over instead of 30% in nature, and impervious surface may be up to 55% rather than 45%.
Right.
So that was a very quick calculation. I just want to make sure that we are all aware at this point, because that's what she said, that if you were to subdivide, and also you cannot change the line on the other lot, because the other lot is exactly, or because of the different length of the side yard, the one facing Dempster, the east and west side yards are not the same length. So that taking into account, it would be 7,200 square feet, which is the minimum lot size. So what it means is that they cannot move the line on the east lot to make it bigger.
Okay.
Now they can remove, let's say, some of the impervious surface to meet the 40%, 45%.
Well, I understand that, but I guess from our perspective is, if there's a zoning issue out there, should we really be reviewing this right now? And
no, I just want to make sure that you're aware that that's a discrepancy.
okay, well, we
But
certainly
right now you have a compliant.
Yeah.
You do have a compliant. Yes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's compliant based on what there are. I guess maybe what we'll do at this point is go through the questions that the commission has, because I have a number of them about the design specifically, which is our purview. And I have some concerns about the materiality on this one. There's a lot going on here. And the design in and of itself, I don't necessarily have any issues with. I think that I would like
Do you like the design?
Overall, I have no issues with the design per se. My concern is that there seems to be a lot of different materials they're competing on all of the facades, and some of them don't necessarily make sense to me. And that's, I think if it was simplified a little bit, in my mind, maybe, I don't know if it means less variation in the number of materials. I don't know if it, it just seems like there's too much there, so.
Well, let's look at, if we may, just look at the different elevations here. So this is the west elevation. And so I frankly said the same thing to Nick at one point, and he said, well, Bill, you have 3 materials plus the soffit material, which is also used on the back bay. Okay, so it's 3 materials plus the soffit material. And so we have, so one thing that I expressed was perhaps the stone is kind of an accent material as opposed to, being more prominent. And I'm open to, Nick is going to, Nate, sorry, Nate. Probably, drill holes in me with his glance, but I want this to be, an example of excellence in contemporary design, and I want it to be distinctive. I want it to be, obviously, it has to be right for a person who wants contemporary, but for that person, I want this to be an excellent example.
Yeah, and from our perspective, we have no issues with contemporary or innovative design, particularly when it's new construction. My concern is that
So is this elevation too busy, too many things going on for you?
That's one of them. I think, in my mind, all of them have issues. I wish I could give you more.
Can I make a quick point?
Sure.
So when you look at this pure elevation, it looks very different than...
Oh, yeah, and I'm looking at your,
Right.
I still have the same
so when
reaction of
when
this.
we do stuff, and we do 3 materials, and then there's an accent on that soffit. And I'm like up in the air here, but if you're down here, it's not quite, you don't see that, but here you're seeing the wood, of course. So, and then there's a certain logic to how the corners are done, and that's where you get that same wrap of the wood to stone in the corner, wood in the corner window. So there's a certain vocabulary that's going on there. And when we took this design and then shot it in pure elevation, it looks very different. I don't like looking at stuff like that. I like looking at it in reality.
Right.
And I will say that the 3D, even though you gave me static 3D images, the looking at it in the model is totally different and really to me a lot better.
Any other commissioners have comments on this one?
I have several, I think, standards like the proportion of the openings, the rhythms of the solids to voids. I understand what you guys are saying with the design, and I understand, Nate, what you're saying with your design, but I haven't really heard any conversation about how it relates to the buildings next to it.
Okay.
So this building and this home, I'm sure, would be fantastic in another setting, but in a historic district, it really needs to tie in what's next to it. It has some great models next to it. The home to the east is a great design, and I'm not saying that it needs to change in contemporary design, but it does need to be a home that respects the context that it's in.
Okay, so
Can I address that. So Evanston's an interesting city. We've got 17 decades of architecture. And certain types, a lot of them are with vertical windows. Most of them are with vertical windows. But when you get into contemporary architecture, you have horizontal. So that aspect of that is different.
But I think too, and this we just obviously had to go through, is I think you can take the neighborhood, which is what you're suggesting, and we understand that, but you cannot deny the buildings you have immediately adjacent.
So one of them immediately adjacent is across the street too.
Which is why that was included. I do believe the synagogue across the street is relevant.
But I think it really starts to detract from the houses that are to the east and the west that have a very strong rhythm of punched windows. And then this elevation specifically does not have that rhythm. I think that really needs to start to better address that context. I understand that that the one across the street meets your contemporary design, but unfortunately you have to address the entire context, not just the one that is the easiest for you to address.
So, I mean, this district and this particular part of the district, this is not a kind of quintessential historic residential neighborhood. It is a mixed-use district. There are some residences here, there's some institutional buildings there.
I think we understand that. I think the issue is that, you know, again, we're talking about the context, and certainly those institutional structures are important, and it gets to sort of the modern issue or whatever that's there, and I think that that's one that we're comfortable with in general.
Right.
I think the specifics have to do with this design in this particular context of this small development, that the Dryden Place development that we're looking at.
Right.
And so I think that's kind of where we're all coming from. And Jamie, you had some things you wanted to ask.
No, I think that pretty much sums it up. But one thing that I wanted to say is I think I heard in the presentation that you're emphasizing planes with the materials, and that there was a view that we just looked at not that long ago where I think the material is actually changing in the plane. So I think if that's like, yeah, right there, is that the same line with the cement panel? Is that all one flush surface?
No, all of them are set off from one another.
So what's the step between the first and second story there then?
I think you're referring to.
Yeah, right there.
It should not be. I mean, if it is, it should be in the final form. It would be offset a little bit.
So one thing I wanted was to have, frankly, richer materials on the planes where people would actually come up next to it. Okay, so I wanted wood, I wanted stone, really on the lower level of that whole western elevation. And so, you know, if there is a break of materials, actually we could frankly extend the soffit material along that native, if that helps to create a greater rationale for break of materials. I think that would be a useful kind of detail. And let me also, if I can go back and address your point about how the specific context here of the homes in the re-subdivision are more important than the other homes in the area. Okay, I mean, I know where you're coming from on that. So there are 1, 2, 3, 4 existing homes. This would be the 5th. Okay, the one on Asbury, the most recent one, is frankly very contemporary.
Yeah, I remember I was on the commission when we approved that.
Right. I mean, it's. I think it's an excellent design myself. I mean, it's not something I would have. This is my first contemporary house, and then there's on the corner is a Georgian style, and next to that is a Italianate style, and then on the corner is kind of a modern version of prairie style. Okay, so 3 of those homes have kind of regular placement of windows and things like that. I think this is asymmetrical. If you look at kind of the total of the fenestration, the spaces and voids, I think it would compare with the other houses in terms of the total proportion. They are not, symmetrical. They don't have the same rhythm, but that is a function, frankly, of the style. And if style is not a factor per se, then you have to look at, I think, the proportions of the form of the building in relation to the others. This is, frankly, from my perspective, only slightly larger than the other homes that I've built, the other two homes.
How many square feet is the footprint?
Nate? I think it's about.
Lot coverage, if that's what you're asking, is 2233.8.
It includes,
He
includes
wants
the
his
garage.
house, what's the footprint of the house?
What's the square footage of the first floor, for example?
Well, I think it's 2233.8, so it's
Okay.
times 2, so 44.
It's like a 4,500 square feet.
Yeah.
Right.
That's not including the basement.
Correct. Which is not the full, it doesn't obviously go under the garage portion. Actually,
I think it-
I
think it
need
does.
to clarify that, so it's probably, you subtract out the garage portion.
Yes.
And then you're gonna add the full 2233.8, so it's less than that. It's gonna be about 400 square feet less than that.
Excuse me.
So it's like 4,100.
Yes.
I mean, the application states that the amount, the proposal for the building is a footprint of 2360.
That is the footprint, including the garage.
That's, I think, what the question was.
I'm just trying to figure out, it's
Yeah.
basically 2360 times 2, right? With sans a garage, right?
Well, it's not exactly, you don't multiply by 2, because on the second floor you have the roof terrace that is not included. We'd have to go through a specific calculation.
Did you build his house?
I did not, no, I did not.
So the other houses in the neighborhood, you sold the lots, but you didn't build them?
I did build the houses.
You did or did not?
I did.
You did, like the White House, the new house on...
Not the White House, but the other two. The one on the corner and the one to the east.
Not the white one.
Not the White House. No, that was actually a custom project.
I think my thing is like, this reminds me of like Edgemere again, because it's like like putting a really modern house into like a, historic context, right? And I think you guys could, I hate to delay anybody, but I think you guys could like clean it up and make it more elegant and make it, it's just, you showed a picture of like the materials of like the hardy board, and it was like a Starbucks. It reminds me of Starbucks. You know what I mean? Like it looks like all the new.
Okay. So we're not, I made a point of saying we're not going to do the panels like Starbucks.
I'm just saying,
Okay.
it's reminding me, I'm saying like, there's things that are like wrong with it, like, that.
I think the issue is, and the architects here can jump in with me, I think we want to see this one again. I'd like to see the materials simplified and streamlined. And I think also, think a little bit more about the, and that gets to the relationship with the materials and textures, that's one of the standards. And then there was some concern about the openings and how they relate, and the rhythm related to that of the solids to the voids. And then somebody else said another thing, I can't recall, but I think we want to see this one again, frankly, with some changes to the design. And I think the other issue that I'd like to see, would also at the same time, perhaps we could get these zoning questions.
I don't think there are any zoning questions, frankly. I mean, it was
Well,
very.
that's fine, at least from our information
Okay.
standpoint.
I think
based
that's
on
great.
what Carla
Yeah.
said tonight, I
Right.
think that would be the case.
Right.
And, so I think we'd like to see this again in November,
So what I would like to do is to, if I can, and maybe maybe Carlos can interpret the conversation here for us, but
We're a little less articulate right now.
it's been a long night, and I think we need to know if the basic direction is okay, it needs to be refined, it needs to be improved. If we come back and refine it, well, you know what, we don't think it's right
And
for the area kind of thing.
And I understand that. I think Carlos can provide some guidance, and I think the other issue is if he has any questions, he can contact us and see if we're, providing you with the kind of guidance you need to bring it back to us, so.
And I would ask that just because there is the standard 14 for the innovative design or contemporary design, it allows that to happen, but it does not it clearly states that it still has to be compatible with the entities around it. So
Stylistically or otherwise?
So it specifically has to be compatible in size, scale, color, material, character of the property,
in the standard
neighborhood, and environment. So there's a lot that has to be chewed off there, and I think that it would be very helpful if when this comes back, those items are very specifically, I know you included some of them, but for the immediate vicinity buildings, it has to be very clear how it is being compatible with those entities, those other buildings.
Okay, with that, can we get a motion to continue this one to the November?
13th.
Yeah, 13th, yeah.
I move that we continue 1222 Dryden Place till our next meeting. And when was that?
It's November 13th.
November the 13th.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. All right.
Very good. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. We have one more item. We need to, did everybody get a chance to read packet 4, I think it is, that has the minutes in it? Anybody, any corrections, do we want to have a motion to approve the meeting minutes from July 10th, September 5th, and September 11th?
I move that we approve the minutes from July 5th.
September 5th?
September 5th.
Or the dates?
All right, here we go. All right, July 10th, September 5th, and September the 11th, approval of the minutes.
Okay, second?
Second.
All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. There. You can abstain. Which one did you miss?
I missed July.
Okay. I think
She
these
was
guys.
sent for July.
Yeah. All right. I think that one more thing before we go. The council approved last night that the commission can go in to visit Harley Clark. Details to follow.
Yes, I contacted the city manager's office asking for dates and the protocol that we should follow.
Yeah.
I did that this morning and I have not received a response yet, so I assume it's going to be coming soon. The idea is that there would be, I suggested 2 to 3 days where you can go morning or afternoon. The only condition would be that you don't invite anyone.
Yeah, it has to be commissioners only.
Only commissioners. And you cannot be more than 3 at a time, although we recommend we need 2.
Yeah, I proposed 2 to them,
Right.
so.
As soon as I find out when the house will be available for your visit, I'll let you know.
Let me know, because I have to be out of town 3 days next week, so that's only my
I will
concern.
probably
So.
send another email to let, when are you not going to be available, you can send me a note or something.
Yeah, I'll send you a note on that.
Right.
So, okay, I think that's the only thing we had to talk about. Other than that, let's have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second? All in favor, signify by saying aye. All right.